Happy Sunday. It is April the 11th, 2021, or night two of WrestleMania, if you will, if you're so inclined. So, anyway, hopefully the weekend has treated you all well. Good evening on this Sunday. So, I wanted to have a little bit of fun, especially since I kind of found myself kind of with an extension of Friday. And on Friday we were able to make it kind of work because at the end of the day, when you get people on and they are interested in chatting and doing different things, we can definitely have some fun with it. And I think that's going to be the case tonight, one way or the other. We'll definitely have to see how it plays out. So what I'm going to do is, without any further ado, right away, even before we start getting going with anybody in the chat, I'm going to put the link up right now and pin it, so it's already there right off the start. Because as far as general topics or things, there really isn't a lot. We covered a lot of it on Friday. So we're going to have to see what happens here. Let me take a look here. So good evening, Paul. That's like, does the Leaf Cup Parade go through by my house? If my house is near somewhere in imaginary, Never Land or something like that, if in a fictional place, sure. I always enjoy it, though. We're always at the right time of the year where if the Leafs are playing well, then we get to find out how they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. How this year is suddenly going to be different than the last 50 or 60 odd years. So we'll definitely see. We'll see. I'd love to see if they got all the way to the suburbs. They'd probably lose which direction they're going to go into and end up somewhere in Windsor. But anyway, let's take a look here. So good evening, House Phone. That's a new one. I like that. Good evening, Ziggy. Good evening, Charles. Are your targets doing Friday drops? Not that I'm aware of. We don't have any targets, though. Actually, I should correct myself. Even before, I don't know if they would have. And Target had a really brief and destructive run in Canada, and there isn't a single Target left in the country. They didn't do very well. That is a long and sordid story. Well, I shouldn't say very long. It's actually a very short story. They decided to buy stores that belonged to what was called Zellers. And Zellers were not exactly in high-end places, and then decided to do a really weird rollout with very strange logistics, and it never caught on. And they basically lost money hand over fist, and then Target in Canada ended almost as quickly as it began. In fact, probably quicker. So good evening, Yannick. Good evening, Sanderson to Orr. And good evening, Jeff. Hopefully all of you are doing well. So yeah, so that hopefully that answers your question, Ziggy. Any Friday drops we have are basically the same Friday drops you do, because we'd be trying to capture something from the States. But otherwise, no. Nothing in regards to that. No Target in this neck of the woods. So anyway, how'd everybody's weekend go? I know it's obviously in the times we're in, but did anybody manage to do anything interesting? For me, it was just a lot of errands and trying to take care of some stuff around the condo and things like that, and trying to prepare for slightly nicer weather. It is nice today. It wasn't so great. Today it wasn't so great just because we did have a little bit of rainy weather, though. But I did mention night two of WrestleMania. Apparently they had a little bit of weather issues over in Tampa Bay in Raymond James Stadium, since they were trying to do it in an outdoor venue. They are at the mercy of the elements. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. So let's take a look here. Yeah, Canada's rough on most American retailers. No, that's fair. That sounds fair. I will say, though, for the Target thing, really the biggest issue I think Target had was just a logistics issue. Like, they didn't have access to the same thing. They didn't have access, really, to the same stuff as the American one. And it was one of those things where it basically became a worse version of Walmart. So because Walmart already had all its logistics figured out, and it rolled itself out slowly over years, where Target came in and just said, okay, we're going to get rolling. We're going to do a rolling start right away and open up a bunch of stores. And they weren't ready. They never were. I remember I had Target near here, and that spot's been abandoned to this day, but it never worked out. So let's see here. So Charles is working on a video. Very nice. Great weekend, solid weather. Nope, things are going well. So I was chatting with the family a little bit earlier, and they're doing well. A couple of them are happy. They got their vaccine shots, so now they're one step closer to being able to step out into the world. That's Medano's up. I know it's a little blocked off by the glare, but that's actually Medano's 1 year in Detroit. Colonial Winsburg, Virginia. 18 holes of putt, bowling, and Ripley's Believe It or Not. Nice. Well played. Well played, Ty. Well played. But anyway, so we'll see. We'll kind of see how it plays out. I will say, I'll quickly touch on, since there isn't too much to add or say, I'll quickly touch on, Jeremy did his interview with Ken Golden yesterday. I did listen back on it. I checked it out on the replay side of things. Those of you who maybe kept track of kind of Ken Golden's social media postings, you're not going to have heard too much that was very different. So I'm not going to rehash that stuff as regards to kind of things related to his consistent discussion about the platform. He did give a little bit of an update where apparently now he's targeting the end of May. So that time has gone a couple of different times. And then also he did talk a little bit about, his email list has grown. Obviously they're trying, he prefers organic growth. He basically held firm that his preference is to stick with three major third-party graders, PSA, BGS, and SGC for now. And he'll look at the other ones once they've had a couple of years of track record, which is consistent with his previous stance. Like I said, if you saw social media, you already heard that. And then I think the only other thing that came out of it was just that he emphasized that he still wants to take a stab at increasing Golden's market share in lower priced auction items, and then maybe separating it out between the super high end and the lower end just to give them more coverage. So those are really kind of the high level points that I took away from it. The rest of it is, if you had watched the social media, you pretty much knew that stuff. The celebrity name drops and all that are pretty standard for Ken Golden. That's par for the course. So nothing too much to add in that regard. Other than that, obviously we have the tops going public. We did talk about that a little bit. I'm now that I've had a chance to read a little bit more, I'm pretty confident they're going to really lean into the digital side of things. But I think it'll be a slow rollout as they go along. But I think that will be a big piece of the puzzle. So that's kind of where I stand on that. But I'm open to keeping an eye on it. And I did mention also that them going public also makes a nice barometer, just another way to kind of pay attention to the market. So we'll see. It'll be a curiosity for me. That'll be something I'll definitely want to keep my eyes open for. So that's just another direction, another angle I would put on there. So I know Dave is into his severe weather. He likes, Dave aspires and dreams to do some storm chasing at some point. Maybe that'll be his new goal to chase after. So anyway, you good, Bobby? Just let me know if you want me to bring you up. All right. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. How'd the rest of the weekend treat you? We're still working on the book?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like my screen is slow or something.
I think the internet is a little bit slow, and I think the picture's a little bit slow, yeah. But I can hear you okay.
Yeah, I tried to look at the green screen thing, so I think I enabled that. I'm not sure. Just playing around back there.
Right. Well, at this point, you're your own dubbing. You're like one of those movies where your mouth moves and then the sound comes out at a different time.
Ah, yeah.
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
You were dead.
Yeah. And it'll be a delayed reaction. In about 25 minutes, it'll happen.
I'm going to go out and come back again. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it. So anyway, just while I'm waiting, while Bobby's doing that. So question. Anything stick out for any for you guys? Maybe with the Golden interview, or any thoughts about the tops thing, or anything else really? Like it's like I said, I don't have any specific. I hit on those right off the top because I wanted to make sure I covered that. But outside of that, really nothing crazy went on this past week, sports card hobby wise, other than just doing my collecting thing, just chugging along that way. But that's the usual for me. That's standard. Anything interesting in anybody's side of things as far as hobby or collecting wise, or anything you guys want to chat about? Or we could chat about WrestleMania if you want. I didn't watch any of it. I unsubscribed from the network some time ago, but I have chuckled, kind of reading the reports after, because that's one of those ones where basically I'll read the box scores, so to speak, because all right, I'm curious what happened, but at the same time not curious enough to watch it or pay for it. So it's not interesting to me in that regard. I'll watch the highlights later. Okay. So while you guys are doing that, I'm just going to pull up some stuff here on the page. And not quite a Jeremy because it's going to be later on, but I think I'm going to have to set a snipe for an eBay auction. Actually, it's not going too bad. It's pretty decent. Okay, so let's give it a try here. All right, Bobby, how's it going now?
Wow. Yeah, still slow, eh?
Do you have anything else going on in the computer that's turned on?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Let me see. Nothing.
Now you know, Bobby, you basically can't touch anything on that computer. Anything you look at so much as look at suddenly slows something else down.
Yeah, something going on.
Yeah. Sounds fair.
That's unusual. Is yours slow too, or?
Nope. I'm pretty much normal. Here we go. The only thing I can think of that seems to be a little bit slow, I'm wondering if it's... Okay, there we go. Now I see. I was wondering if the chat was running a little bit slow, but now I see it. So Sub here had a question. I think Golden's new platform would take cards market out of eBay someday. Some. just a little bit. I don't think he's going to go all the way down to the very inexpensive cards, but I think he can still a little bit of market share and stuff like the $100 range and up to like $500 and above, because eBay's platform is bad. A lot of it will really depend, of course, on what the fee structure is, right? Because if you're selling like $100 to $200 card and if the fees are really onerous, then it's not really not worth it for you. And then the answer is no. Then the card won't even be on the platform, and there'll be no way for them to take any market. The other side of it is, as a buyer, the experience has to be good. The good news, though, for you is if they do have a reasonable fee structure and the buying experience is okay, then as a seller, you do get vetted buyers. So that is worth something. I think that's decent. We'll have to see how that's going to play, but you're not going to get all the way down to the very bottom of you're not going to get all the way down to the very bottom, because if it's inexpensive cards, you're probably not going to see a lot of that, but you will see. I think they will mark it down a little bit, because I think they do want to get more cards on the platform and become a bigger player, even not just at the high end, which they're already doing very well with, but at the low end a little bit more as well. And I know there's another question here on the Ken Golden as well. I'll touch on that in a second. 9-1 wasn't terrible weather aside. Shane Braun match. What was most expected? Okay, no, that's fair. Yeah, the internet traffic. Yeah, I would sincerely hope that nothing related to hockey trades would slow down any traffic around here. I think it might be some internet traffic. I don't think so. So here we go. Thoughts on Golden speculating about PSA doing a black label concept. I think it's a reasonable thought. I think though, I'll be honest with you. I understand the logic. I think PSA would have a lot of trouble implementing it this late in the game, because they never introduced that concept earlier on. And it's one of those things where they left the 10 in there. Now, I'm just trying to think. When Beckett originally did its thing, I feel like they had a pristine. I think the black label came later, but I think they had a pristine originally. And then their subgrades opened the door. With PSA, since they don't have subgrades, it's like, so you have a 10, but how would you know that it qualifies for this special 10 designation? Whereas like the subgrades were how you justified it with a Beckett. Or with SGC, you didn't have subgrades, but you were very careful when you gave out that pristine, when you gave out that absolute top tier, the gold label, so to speak. So it's possible, but I can imagine a lot of folks sitting there with PSA 10s that would be really irritated. And there's a bunch of folks with like borderline PSA 10s that would be doubly irritated, whereas like it says 10 on the holder, but all of a sudden you created this additional level, Spinal Tap turned it to 11, so to speak. So concept wise, it's interesting. I just don't know if I don't know how they would execute. I would love to be in the boardroom meeting where they had that discussion. I think that would be very interesting. I would want to be a fly on the wall on that one. Yeah. So Dave says, I don't think Golden's new platform will go down to lower rung like eBay does. No, not all the way down, but I think they can get, like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they got to like the $100 level, because there's still plenty of $100. Again, it depends on their fee structure. If their fee structure is adjusted accordingly, they could steal some $100 cards in there. And if the high end has almost its own entry point where like folks that only care about that can go there and not care, but then people who are interested in everything else can go access that, you might still have enough eyeballs to be able to make it interesting. And vetted buyers, like I said, has tremendous value. Just knowing that if your stuff sells, it's more than likely good and you're done is a huge value for you as a seller who just wants to complete your transaction without having to worry about the nonsense of returns and stuff. So that does have some value as well. So here we go. For the first, Sanderson Orr says, for the first time I'm using the PSA set registry. I'm surprised PSA does not have the picture of the slabs in their records. I'm not. They have millions of cards. They do not scan them. So no, I am not shocked in the slightest. It would have been, if they had wanted to do that, they should have started it years ago. But there are millions and tens of millions of cards in. They're not going to have scans of anything. You would have to upload your own. Ultimate Life Goal, Paul Fee Rookie PSA Black Label. A respectable goal. A respectable goal. PMN says the increased grading cost will hit the overall card hobby as some of the newer entrants in the hobby no longer have easy profit potentials. Less demand / new money equals lower prices. That is, it's a reasonable thought, but at the moment, nothing has led to lower prices. Almost everything has led to higher prices. The increased grading costs will make people consider what they actually want to send in for grading. But easy profit, well, I guess it kind of depends on what your original buy price was on something. That's the real question. Um, Less demand. The demand part we have to see. New money, lower prices, maybe. I think on some cards, yes, but on other cards, you might be shocked that maybe it has no difference at all, or the card keeps going up anyway. I just leave that out there. Don't try to assume that one thing is going to affect the whole market blanket. There's going to be some segments that are probably not going to be as affected as you might think, or more affected. Just depends on the item. No longer Boston Bruins fast for the rest of the night. Down to 6-0 at the Caps. Ouch.
Oh,
Well, did Ovechkin do any of that scoring? Because if he didn't, that would make it worse. That would actually make it much worse. All right, PSA 10s have been inconsistent for years. Think close to the price cap between Beckett 10 and PSA 10. They would have to tighten up the grading. It's a possibility, but the key is that there aren't as many Beckett 10s. So it's not even about consistency; it's about quantity. PSA 10s grading standard allows for more of them to be out there. By definition, there should be more PSA 10s than Beckett 10s because Beckett 10s require a higher standard as far as the subgrades. So you can get away with certain, like centering, for example. You can get away with worse centering on a PSA 10 than you can with a Beckett 10, unless the other subgrades are phenomenal. If you got 3 10s and everything else, then you can probably get away with, not as great centering, but it's still got to be decent. It can't be bad centering. Otherwise, it'll knock the thing down no matter what.
but we do have the PWCC where they allocate three tiers of grades from 10s, or the best 10, top 30%, top 15%, top, I don't know what the last one is, at 5 or 10%. I'm not too sure.
Their last sticker. Yeah, exactly.
So even Ken Goodwin said last night that, he actually reinforced the PSA. Well, they're just a 10. That's all they need to be. And you might have the pristine, you might have the black label, but you still have the PSA 10, which actually contends with them all at his point of view.
Yeah. I think where the bigger differentiator is if you take a card that has requisite demand, and then after you do that, after you get enough demand out there, then if there's enough of a gap between the amount of PSA 10s and the amount of Beckett 10s, making the Beckett 10 that much rarer, that's where you can get the big premiums.
Sure.
Because if it's a card that people really want anyway, and maybe you get somebody who has some money who wants the best, quote unquote, of the best, they want the more exclusive one, the one with the lower pop count, where a PSA 10 might be too common for them. That's why I had the fun with the Medano PSA 10. There's 1,000 of them. Literally 1,000. So now Beckett 10 by comparison is a much, I think it's in the 20s or something like that. Like it's much lower. So by comparison, if you take something that's 50 times rarer, well, then presumably you would pay more for it. Like logically, it seems reasonable. Now, if you get something that's a black label and let's say it's a pop 2 or 3, well, there you go. Take it another step higher, right?
Yeah.
So I could understand that. But it's got to be somebody but you got to want the thing in the first place, because it's one of the conversations, and we've kind of had it offline and online as well. For me, the key is scarcity is always part of the equation. It's got to be a real thing, but it could be something that's a one of one, and if 0 people want it, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
So it's still at least one person has to want it for this to work, preferably 2. And if at least you've got 2, then you've got the potential for bidding war.
That's why you have a lot of buy it nows, right?
Correct. But you got to have it. Otherwise, it's like, who cares? It's like, it's super rare. Great. No one wants it. You know who's rare? A person who wants it.
That's the rarity. That's where the rarity comes in, right?
That's correct. But that if you're talking about price, that is a super critical factor. And people forget that part of it. It's like, look, the supply, we got that figured out. Okay, it's a one of one, or it's only 5 in the world or whatever. That's great. What's the demand? Well, 0. Awesome. That's $5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Shipping included.
Yeah, exactly. Shipping included. Yeah. If PSA started offering a premium gold 10 and devalued all the current 10. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I say, like, if they were going to do that, that's a dangerous move.
Yeah.
Shutting down most of the service levels is actually a really light move by comparison. That's them just making a power play. Creating a premium 10 is like literally slapping people who spend potentially millions of dollars on your cards across the face and being like, your 10's not good enough. Is it a special 10? Is it a gold 10 or whatever you're going to call it?
That's a big flex for them. Wow.
But also if let's say you're a person who has a 10, right? And you spend good money on it, like good money on it, like a Gretzky 10, but it's not worthy of a gold 10.
Ooh,
Maybe you're a borderline 10 and you got in kind of under the lucky time where it's like you got the right grader on the right day.
like
And
the
if you
last
were
10 that sold?
if
Yeah.
you perhaps, but if you were to try to do it, not only do you not get the gold 10, maybe you get a 9.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a
Ooh.
possibility that is real. That could happen if you decide to suddenly get stringent and really protect the gold 10. We're just using gold 10 as an example. We don't know what it would call it, but I'm saying like it's a dangerous move. That's playing with fire right there at this stage in the game. Because if they were a newer company, then yeah, go for it. There's no reason why not. But if you've already been there since 91, 30 years, you're going to introduce it now? That's a tough one.
The platinum.
Whatever. It can be whatever you want. It can be the diamond 10. But it's like,
Do any other grading companies have that?
what, a platinum?
No, an extra tier. Like, does SGC or
Yeah, Beckett has the black label, and SGC has the gold. So they have a 10, and then they have a gold 10.
Oh, I don't see many SGCs around. Like, so
Yeah, but the thing is, the SGC gold 10 is a little bit, they do reserve it a little bit. They do hold back. So it plays into this concept of the additional exclusivity, where it's like you can have a 10 that is a really good card, but they left a little bit of room for a card. Maybe the corners and edges and everything are exactly the same, but the centering on this one is 50-50 on the dot. There you go. We give you that little extra because yours is just a little bit nicer. But it's got to be like, at that point, you're splitting hairs. It should theoretically be the narrowest of margins keeping you from one to the other.
yeah,
That's why I said like PSA 10 already left a gap open for their 10. So they could justify an 11. They could say it's everything that a 10 is plus 50-50 perfect centering. Perfect registration. No adjustments, no qualifiers, no nothing. Front and back perfect centering. Like 50-50 front and back.
and back. Gotcha.
Yeah, like if you so I'm saying you could create that if you wanted to with like the most stringent of things where it's like this is basically a perfect card.
Mhm.
But there's people who believe that a PSA 10 is a perfect card because they just don't know.
Yeah.
So you immediately taught them. All of a sudden, you've told them that wait a minute, they had this idea in their head, and now you've wrecked it. The gold black over 10 also presumes there's noticeable difference between a 10 and the gold 10. Yeah, but even if there was I use the example here with the centering thing. You could have a 10 that is 49-51, and then you have another one that's 50-50 on the dot, perfect front and back. The 50-50 front and back is better. Everything else being equal, it is better. But it is the most splitting of splitting hairs. Like it is, at that point, you're bringing in like the microscope to like measure it out to the micron. Like it's so precise that it's nearly impossible to pull off.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where you run into a bit of a problem. I could see that being a big issue. But that's just it. And perception is reality when it comes to stuff like that, big time. So I'm just scanning here.
Well, I can really see the point of someone going up to a certain level, but what is the criteria used by the other companies? I guess is the biggest thing. Is that 50-50 centering, which I believe, and you said it right there, Carlos, is really a key, that 50-50 front and back, because a lot of times the back is a little off or front is like, I don't know, it's not quite 50-50, but pretty darn close.
Yeah, that's your real justification. Like if you want to try to say something is better than quote unquote 10, but if you do have that perfect centering front and back, it is, if you are a person who demands the best of the best, it is that one more thing that you can have that would put you ahead of somebody else who has an otherwise excellent card. Because like I said, we're splitting hairs. If I give you a card that's 48-52, perfectly sharp edges, perfectly sharp corners, clean registration, a great picture, are you going to cry about it? Probably not. You're going to be happy. That's a really good card. Like that's an excellent card, especially if it's a card that is scarce in that kind of quality where there are a malady of defects, like a vintage card that somehow has managed to preserve itself in that. You're going to be suspicious. But if you manage, the fact that the centering is just a smidge off is not really going to deter you. You're going to know what you have.
At that point, you need a micrometer to measure the
Correct.
48 and 52. It'd be almost impossible.
Exactly. So that's why I say, like, at that level, you're probably not gonna cry about it that much. You're
No.
gonna be thrilled that you were able to get what is a truly a rare piece that has
Yeah.
somehow survived.
Hmm.
So good evening, Greg. Hope things are going well. But I agree. That's the thing, though. The concept is interesting, but I don't know. I don't know what you would do with it. I genuinely don't. So that's always kind of a thing. Good evening, Victor. Type of device do you think the grid is using to gauge centering? I guess it would depend on the company. Part of me secretly would love if a couple of the companies like don't have the budget and they're like, literally, it's just a ruler. It's like, guys, I think we're good.
We got one.
In theory, here's the thing. This is where you could use digital optics. Like you could just put it over a camera on a scan and just like it would. You could be really precise. The computer could basically measure if it's got borders. Again, we're assuming borders. Borderless cards are really tricky. That's different. But if you have a bordered card, you can measure the left, you can measure the right. What's the percentage? It's a math problem.
Yep.
You just add them up. What's the difference between one? If they're identical, then it's 50-50. It's a math problem.
It's really tough to do because you're not talking about left to right. You're talking top and bottom as well.
Sure. But again, I'm assuming if you have borders on all sides, you can do the identical job. You can go left to right, top to bottom, and do that. Then you can have the level of precision we're talking about, because if you have a good optics, like you can blow it up and like have it right in front of you and be like, there it is.
Yeah, easy to see.
Yeah,
that's it gets the one too finite at that point, though. I think almost.
Agreed. But that's the one thing you can use where the technology does allow you to have it. It does allow it. Everything else, you're hoping it works.
I can see them in the boardroom. Let's blow it up. Yep, it's bang on. Oh, what's that other thing? Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see this. Oh, you don't want to see some things.
No, but I'm saying like digital optics is the one thing you can use to catch a lot of things. Like it can help you.
It can. Yeah, it can hurt you too. Yep. Then you get to see too much.
If you're the grader, you genuinely don't care. That's really not your job. Your job is to call what you see. But to your point, for the clientele, they may not want to be as precise.
Mm-hmm.
They may want to leave some room for human error. They're not using the digital strike zone. They're using human error, and they're saying, well, human error. It's subjectivity. Resubmit it.
It's no 11. It's a 10 for sure.
Yeah. So PMN here. So let me read this here. You're presuming? I am not presuming. I merely stated what you could do. I have no idea what PSA is doing. They could do it by having a seance and asking the spirits. I have no idea what PSA does. So, first sentence, incorrect. We are not presuming anything. We don't know what they're doing. They could literally be using a ruler for all I know. Second, they give a gold. It isn't 50-50. All hell breaks loose on social media. All hell breaks loose on social media every 5 minutes. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I will say, and this is, I was going to do that video this weekend, but I didn't have time. I wanted to basically do a video talking about the concept because I see it now a lot. People will make videos and posts and things and everything. And it's to the point that I think some people are looking for things to get mad about, because P-Man's point there about, all hell breaks loose on social media is like, yeah, probably. But that's because some people have too much time in their hands and find things that don't matter to care about. It's like, do you really care that much? Does it bother you? It's like, does it offend your sensibilities that they dare to grade a card that is like, but the centering's off? It's like, are you buying it? No. So then why do you care? At the end of the day, it's like, whatever. You don't send it in then. Like, I'll make it easy for you. I'll save you some money. Don't send it in.
Yeah.
Or if you see the card and the centering's off for you, don't buy it. I'll make it even easier. like, does it really matter? Like, honestly. So here, you give any value to the transparent grading card tools for sale on the market? I've looked at, there's like some apps I've seen, and I think there's like a thing, like a piece of plastic that you can use to try to help you with centering. I could imagine like for centering that could be useful, because basically it's like a grid. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I might be mistaken. Like I could see scenarios where a grid like that could help you visualize, especially with something that doesn't have borders. With something that doesn't have borders, you need something. You need some kind of a position to be able to try to figure out the relative position of, because like I said, when you've got borders, you literally could use a ruler. As crude and silly as that sounds, you could use a ruler and get within a reasonable approximation. Like you're not going to get down to the micron, but you could get a good ballpark figure.
Positioning, I guess, for borderless cards, so the positioning of the photo has to be perfect before it gets applied to the card, because if it's an off-center type of shot, like he's coming up from the back corner, coming into the net, in a basketball sense, is that really the angle, or is there centering issues, or is that part of the picture?
Yep.
So hard to determine. You'd have to go to the companies and ask them, where's the center mark?
Yeah. Well, but what I'm referring to
Good
is
luck.
that what I'm referring to is that you can use certain marks on the card. Like, let's say you've got the card, you've got the picture, but with the picture you may not know what's supposed to be where. But then you take a look at, like, say where their name is. So say your name is in a box. If the name in the box is almost at the edge, about to be miscut, well, then you know something's off. So then you figure out, okay, so is the name high? Is it low comparatively to some other cards? And you can try to establish a little bit. It'll give you a little bit of an idea. It's not perfect, but it gives you a guide, something you can see, so you can compare the one on the left and the one on the right and say the name is further to the left on this one and further to the right on this one. So one of them is off center, because immediately then you know that, hey, where's this supposed to be relative to the rest of the card? Any elements on the card can potentially give you guide points to be able to try to do that. I wouldn't want to try though on a borderless card. It is really hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assumed that was one of the possibilities you were talking about. I have seen them. They're little I think it's the little plastic ones. Yeah. So with the outline and legend. Yeah. Okay. So it is like literally a plastic card that you can put on top to take a look at it. I've also seen apps that do a similar thing. So on a smartphone, you can do that as well. They're nice to have because they do give you a little bit of a visual aid. I personally don't. I think if you're on a borderless card, well, then you're on your own. That thing might help you. But if it's a bordered card, usually I'm pretty comfortable just measuring it however you want to measure it.
Yeah, I noticed that on the 55, 56 Parkers. There's no border around the top, but that red line at the bottom is the best. Mm-hmm. And you can see there is the name marker, and that really helps you. Otherwise, I see so many, and they're miscut to begin with. So
that's what I mean. Like, so if a card
so
is
hard,
if you're within a certain tolerance of the card size anyway, then you've got a problem anyway. So it's like, so no matter what, that's why I say, like, I don't envy somebody who is trying to do that and then hoping to make money on it. So I totally understand. But usually what I end up doing personally, when I was submitting cards here and there, is that I tend to stick to bordered cards just because it makes my life easier, or can. And if that's the case, well, then I'll measure it, but I'm not going to sit there staring at it for hours. My goal is just to be like, is this within about a 55-45 tolerance? Because that's what I'm looking for. If it's within that or a little better, I'm feeling good about that component of it. Then I move on. Surface, edges, corners, you don't have to spend 3 hours staring at the card to try to like decide. If you see something that's glaringly obvious and you really want to still take a stab at it, by all means. What happens a lot of times though is you got a lot of cards that have like dark borders, chipping. So like you're looking for those things. Like that's the first things I'm looking at. Then if everything else looks good, then I get to measuring the borders and stuff like that.
So is the O-Pee-Chee rough cut, comparatively speaking, to the chipping, the same, different?
Well, I think
ominous.
I'm going to say no, only because the rough cut pretty much it comes out that way, right? It was based on the way it was cut, based on the instrument and how they did it. Whereas the chipping, maybe in the pack it was good, and then within like short order, even by the time you get it and open the pack, something chips it. Because sometimes it's so thin, that line on the edge, that it just takes the tiniest little thing. Maybe it got rubbed against another card and suddenly it chipped. Like it can be little silly things, just the abrasion, just anything. Because it depends on the issue in the year, right?
Yeah. And go by Beckett and what they said about the cards were cut with wire. It's like, it's in one of the Beckett guides, and it's like, really? Yeah. Wire? Okay.
Yeah. My thing though, where I differentiated though, is that if it came right out of cutting, and by the time it was in the pack, it already has the rough cut, it's done. Theoretically, the chipping, maybe it got in the pack that way. But oftentimes what I'll see is it doesn't require much handling to accidentally chip one of those cards. Like it takes so little. You could be super careful and still chip the thing. Especially with some of those dark border issues. Like it doesn't take much. You try your best and it doesn't go.
Yeah, well, they certainly had some issues with the rough cuts because most of the cards that were cut through the slitter. So the slitter does the top and bottom.
Right.
So the slitter was working good because usually the top and bottom aren't the rough cuts for the most part with O-Pee-Chee. It's usually side to side. So that's where the issue really lied in the problems with the cuts on the left or right. And I don't really know the machine. That is the next step. I've been trying to look into it and find out,
Hmm.
but I'm pretty sure I might know, but I gotta take it a few more steps, and then I'll figure out what that machine is called, whether it be called a guillotine that comes down and chops, because it really seems that they form the same chop um, on each and every card from each set. It's kind of interesting. Been really looking into a lot of that lately.
No, that's fair. I think that's reasonable. And so let me ask you kind of a general question that'll play a little bit into it because we'll do this question, then we'll do Sanderson to Orr has a fun comment as well. But let's do this one here in a second. But one thing that I would point out is let's say you are able to, in a couple of months or a year or so, figure it out. Would that be maybe the subject of like an article that then would get added to your site once it's ready and up and running, something like that? That would be the
Yes.
kind of thing that would be content for it.
Well, yeah, actually, the every article that I have written will be
Mhm.
also included in that set or
Yeah.
whatever issue it is. So,
Yeah.
will you have the write up? Yes, but you'll also have the article to read as well within that set,
Okay.
if it is written. And
Yeah.
I've written, I don't know, 60, 70 articles, I imagine. So, and keep on writing more and more. It just helps explain better some of the issues that really need more explaining. It's hard to put something down in a paragraph or two about a big issue that has a lot of complexity to it. So you have to, add more information. Otherwise, they don't understand the rarity and what have you. And getting to the question there from Hockey 99 there,
Yeah.
it's not that I don't like the cards. I think they're well designed and everything, but in a historical sense, there's no sense of rarity when it's manufactured recently and they put numbers on the cards that are limiting them. So it's manufactured scarcity, and that doesn't do anything for me. I like things of period. It's like people who buy uh, the Mona Lisa. You can get a print, pay $5, or wouldn't you want the original? That's a big comparison different, but I'm just trying to think that something everybody knows. So you have the choice of choosing what you want. You can pay for this or you can pay for that. But when the print becomes more expensive than almost the original, then where are we? So I don't like the pricing of the cards being based that they put a number on it and limited a new picture. It didn't survive the test of time. They all come out of the packs high grade for the most part. So there's no challenge to it, in my opinion. There's challenge to finding rare cards. Yeah, there's rare cards. I don't even use the word rare. I would think limitedly scarce is more of it. And that's my feeling for the newer cards. That's where I don't have that historical appreciation. And I'm an older person too. So I'm opening packs in 69, 70, 71, 2, 3, 4. Opening packs in 2020, gambling. Sorry. It's just my feeling.
No. The thing is, they put hockey posed the question. It's your question, so you needed to answer that the way you saw fit. I like Sanderson to Orr's comment here. Everything from now on is decal cut, and we never have to worry again. You know what's
Yeah,
funny?
there you go.
I love the concept of it, but I will say there are some issues where they have done stuff like that, and that is a spot where chipping does become a thing because of the nature of a die cut, because of the way they would do it, especially if the back is usually one spot where like they'll have like a dark edge to it, and with a die cut, the chipping becomes pronounced. You will see it immediately. You'll see specks of white all over the back edges and things like that, almost instantaneously. And it's one of those things where you kind of have to accept it, because once they manufacture it that way, it's like, well, you can. It's like, what are you going to do? It's like, oh, give me a mint copy. It's like, it's a die cut. The nature of it with a dark edge is that even right out of manufacturing, you tried your best and you immediately chip it. If you get it right, it looks spectacular. But if oftentimes it's like one little thing somewhere got nicked along the manufacturing process, and there you go.
Well, die cuts with O-Pee-Chee when they did the early 70s, they used to cut the sheets down because the die cuts used to pop if it was a full sheet. And they used to, it's almost like glass. You can wiggle the sheet and the air underneath it will help it move. You can't do that with die cuts. So they cut the sheets down so they were more manageable and you didn't pop the die cuts out while they were cutting it. And every time they were fed into the machine, there was a little pin that went in to grab the card sheet on the way in. So you always see little fleck markers all through the whole die cuts. If you look at all the early 70s inserts. They all have this little pinhole or a little piece where that's where it grabbed it and brought it in. It's very hard to find them without it.
Yep. No, that's fair. So
But that's allowed in grading, I assume, because it's a natural occurrence.
I think this was always one of those things where what they're supposed to do, and they sometimes do it better than others, they're supposed to take into account whatever the manufacturing process was of said year and issue, because there's some where you just expect certain defects are there because of the time or the manufacturing process or whatever the case may be. So you make allowances for it. You're not forgiving it per se, but you're like, okay, but you can't have the expectation that it's going to be mint by the manufacturing process of something that was done differently or better or whatever the case may be, because it's impossible, because you won't find a copy. Now, that might be the right answer. You might say, well, then there should be none. Then it shouldn't exist. Maybe the highest grade possible is a 5 or a 6 or whatever the case may be based on technical grade. So then don't factor it in. So that could be a thing. But that has to be a decision that the third-party grader makes. Now, our consideration is always, you make that decision, fine. You're consistent with it, great. Then people can decide not to grade with you and go to your competitors who make the allowance. So you always have to factor that in when you make a decision. So PMN here says, if PSA implemented the new Gold 10, they better have evidence cards in said category merit the bump. In reality, these new 10s, but on any other day, could be graded a straight 10. Yeah. When you're splitting hairs, you've left room open for that. Huge room for that. So Victor here says, researching sports cars and writing is a lot of work. Thankless, endless work, a penny a day type of work. I get a half cent per day, but Bobby gets the full penny.
No, actually, it's American, so we're almost even.
Oh,
and I'm Canadian dollars, so there you go.
Nice. So Hockey Hawk says, your card taste reminds him of his taste in music. Perfect. Not a fan of the new one. Yep. Something romantic about base card instead of manufactured rarity. And in the same vein, subject to each their own. It's got to be whatever your preference is. True. So there's no wrong answer in that. It's just whatever you prefer.
It is.
I like Sanderson towards the comment here. Stop spending all your time guessing a podcast. It's the opposite. He comes on the podcast to get away from the book. We talked about that, and I've had a lot of fun with this. Like otherwise, yeah. I think Bobby, you listen to certain ones when you're working on it, and then sometimes like, all right, time to get away from it for a little bit.
You have to. In between, I'm married, so I have a wife and I have things to do, and there's other things, so I can't always spend the time. And this is kind of sitting back, relaxing, enjoying talking to you guys, and you're trying to bust my balls there, Sanderson.
Yeah. No, as soon as I saw it, I figured it's like, well, we've had this conversation. It's one of those things where I was like, it's always open. Anybody can pop in, but it's like, I'm happy to have the conversation. It's always fun. So I enjoy it.
I want to be finished that book sooner than you think I want it to be finished. It's on its way, though. It's moving really fast now that I'm into the food issue, which I can whip through very fast because I know most of that stuff like the back of my hand. Mm-hmm. What's that? Oh, okay. Somebody had to get that.
Yeah. Historian and website teas. There you go. So yeah, I will say also in the same vein. So I agree with this. One of those things though is the whole thing about the Gold 10 and Black Label or whatever. It's like it's a nice to have, but it's not necessary. Like realistically, as a buyer, if you're a collector, find a 10 that is nicely centered, and you're happy. You could be the one looking out for it. That's an opportunity for you, because you could have a sea of 10s, but maybe you find the one that fits your criteria and be like, no, I really would like to have one that's 50-50. Well, there probably is one in the holder. Especially if there's decent quantity, there's probably one that meets your criteria. Well then, but that means you have to buy the card and not the holder. You got to look for the card that matches your aesthetic criteria. And there you go. And then you could be buying the going rate and you're still going to feel wonderful because you got the best version of it without having to have somebody put a sticker on it or whatever to tell you so. So you could do it yourself.
I got a question for the gang there.
Go ahead.
I'll say 2 words. I want a response. It's, hey, Mabel. All right, let's go on. See if anybody answers.
That'll be your test. All right.
It's a good test.
Sounds good.
So, it's my litmus test.
There you go. So PMN Sayer says, I agree with Bobby that real scarcity is much sexier than manufactured. That's why vintage is king. But there must be a way to collect cards for the current players. I don't have any issue with the comment here. One thing I'll say, and this is as
I think vintage is not king anymore.
No, it's not. Now, are there some cards at the upper tier that like, the 52 Mano, the Honus Wagner, are there cards at the the cream of the crop? Yes, without a doubt. Uh-huh. But the current, this is where I get into a debate, something back and forth with folks. They say, oh, but I want the hobby to thrive. Great. Then you want modern to succeed.
Yeah.
because the kids aren't buying the Honus Wagners. They're not buying the 52 tops. They may develop an appreciation for it. I had that appreciation for it early because those were aspirational pieces to me. But I'm the outlier, not the common. it's not standard. Sometime now, most of the time, your gateway is maybe you, as time goes on, go back nostalgically to the stuff that was cards of your youth.
Yes.
But for me, now you take a kid in the hobby right now, my cards basically might as well be vintage to them because they're thinking like, oh, 89, 1990, that's, 30 years ago and whatever. It's like, oh my God, that's forever ago. That's, 2 or 3 times my lifetime, which is correct for them. That's very true. But it's one of those things where, but then if you are someone who likes the history of the hobby as well, then you can go backwards and go like, I have no connection to 1960 when I'm doing that 1960 Parker set, but I like the set. I like it aesthetically. I like the players in it. I think the checklist is nice. So I like the challenge of going after those cards. So for me, that's interesting. 53 tops. I love that set aesthetically. It's a great set. Some classic cards in it. But I have no link to 53. 53 is 1 year before my dad was born. So Carlos Sr. has no connection to 1953. So it's one of those things where it's like, there's no reason for me to go back and collect them aside from my appreciation for the cards themselves.
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to get that. And for a lot of the kids, if you want them to collect, the gateway has to be the modern. So you can't ignore the modern. You can't dismiss the modern because otherwise then you have no future.
Yeah. And there's so many sets issued every year. I think that's a huge problem as well. Varying qualities, different rookies. How many different rookies last year?
It'll depend on the player. It'll depend on the player, right? The more popular ones will
Victor.
have
Where's Victor? Victor, we need numbers.
Yeah, actual rookies. Rookies.
We need your half cent and worth of
earn your half cent. Nice. Nice. But yeah, but the reason why I took a second though to make sure we pointed out is that you can have the appreciation for vintage. That can be your preference, and that's perfectly fine. And I enjoy vintage myself. But at the same time, you cannot throw away modern. You don't have to collect it. You don't have to buy it. It doesn't need to be for you. If you don't like it, it's not for you. But if you would like this hobby that you supposedly want to see continue in the future, then you need it. Mm-hmm. Not for you, but for them.
It's the necessary evil if you're that way.
But that's the thing though. Like if you collected as a kid, your stuff was modern at one point. Mm-hmm. What if the people around had been like, well, forget it, Bobby. No 1960. You got to go back to 1930s. Your 1960 garbage. This is the way it always works. This is the way this works. Every generation will have it. If it lasts long enough, some point, someone will sit there and nostalgically think about the 2020 collecting year in 2050, if the hobby's still there at that time. And they'll talk about, whoa, these kids collecting those 2050 cards. That junk. Collect 2020 like a real collector.
Carlos, you don't understand. In 1960, they had 2 whole manufacturers. I didn't have to just buy one set. I had to buy 2 sets, Parkers and Tops.
That's one too many, Bobby. That's one too many. That's one too many.
I only got like a quarter a day. How much money do you think I could spend on cards? Exactly. Let's fast forward and multiply that. Yeah. I don't think you could figure out the permutations behind that.
Yeah. But the reason I make the emphasis though is that every generation will always prefer its stuff from its time. Every single one. And that's what's supposed to happen. So I don't judge it because that's what's supposed to happen. My generation was better than yours. Your generation was better than mine. This is the way it's supposed to work. And it will continue. And then the day will come where like it, whatever, like I said, my stuff will be 50 years ago at some point. In 20 years, that's what's going to happen. And it'll be 50 years ago. And then it's like, so is it vintage now?
If anybody wants it, it's like that old stuff.
But that's basic. But that's the point. But in a nutshell, that's the point. But that's always the question.
I understand. You do have to move forward, and I do look at cards, and I try to follow the market and what's happening. And I use this thing like it's everything to me. Communication and what have you. So you have to keep up with the times. I know there's a lot of vintage guys who don't use their phone or don't go on the computer, and they can only go to shows. I just want to be one of those guys who stays in the time, but it doesn't mean I have to collect the cards. It's not that I mean that I don't like them. Mm-hmm. I cannot collect them. I don't see their value to me. Mm-hmm. And like the players, I do. There's a lot of players that I do like. And now we're at a money point that's just like, I can't afford to collect new cards. There's no way. Uh-uh.
No, that's fair. And that part of it I'm in complete agreement with. But
Unless I go against Carlos with Medano or something, then
bring it on, Bobby. Let's go. Let's do a bidding war.
all right.
I'm for it. I don't have that issue. I laugh because I'll talk to some other collectors. They want to collude and be like, hey, let's not infringe on this. Look, man, if I really want the card that badly, I'm prepared to commence the war. Let's begin hostilities. I will either win the card or bankrupt you, whatever comes first. I'm cool.
Or yourself. One of the three.
I never bet enough to bankrupt myself. I will push it right up to the line. But if I can bankrupt you, let's do it. I'll push you to the line on every single card until you run out of money.
That's what happens in the hobby when you make a lot of friends in the same kind of game.
Yeah,
like display boxes and wax back in the day. Anything that came up, we knew who was going to win it out of the four of us because there was two guys who had way deeper pockets than we'll ever have, and it's almost like you couldn't compete because you knew so it was kind of best to be a little sneaky and on the side and just kind of try to do your deals away from the internet and what have you. But anyways, that was wax way back when.
That was always the ideal. If you could do an offline deal, that was ideal. But it was one of those things, like, I understood. It was one of those things I respect it. I respect a lot that the guys they're so friendly. And it was like I chuckled because when I was collecting against, because at one point I knew who the other Medanos collector was. Like, it wasn't friendly, it was war. And I was kind of okay with it. I understood. So it's kind of like I sit there and okay, it's very cute, but you're all soft.
Soft Europeans.
No good, no good. Yeah, no, it's one of those things where like you have to stay within your budget. You have to stay with what you can afford and what you can afford to do. You have to understand what that is, and you have to accept you're not going to get everything. You really can't. And as long as you understand that and you're happy with it, and you can still build a collection you want to build, do the best you can. Have some fun with it. It's fine. But I'm never going to worry about like stepping on somebody's toes to bid on a card I actually want. I'm not sitting there asking for permission. Like, well, do you mind? Is it okay? Is it my turn? No,
I don't like that.
No, absolutely. Like, that's not what we're doing here. But anyway, so let's see here.
Well, we got lots of messages here to catch up on.
Well, not really. I've only got a couple from Ty here because the last one here was Sanderson. You're his hero.
Sorry, I was looking up there.
Yeah. Those ones we've covered.
Hobby historian and website tease. I missed that one. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I was talking. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, for the most part, we've kept it PG. It's all good. We've kept it pretty PG. You can watch it in front of the kids today.
I don't think I've ever really once I swore on your show.
Yeah, there are moments here and there, but it's like I don't worry. We're late enough where it's like, look, it's prime time, people. It's prime time. But we're not also going to be gratuitous. It's not just for the sake of whatever.
It depends who you have on.
Well, exactly. So there we go. What are your thoughts on card orders like Foul Ball Paul from the documentary Jack of All Trades? Well, I remember Foul Ball Paul from that documentary. He enjoyed it. He was like it, and also a lot of the stuff he was hoarding wasn't really like stuff that I would need. So it's like, have at it. It's giving you joy. You're having fun with it. Go ahead. Why would I critique and criticize that? It's like, clearly he had fun with it. It was fun for him.
That's a fun movie.
Yeah.
And a funny movie.
Yeah. But you know who he's referring to. Like, he's like, if Fall Ball Paul wants to build that group of cards, because it's like, it's not like those guys were rich. So the reality is he was probably going to be somebody who was probably getting those in bulk. He was probably getting like 5,000 count boxes and stuff. So it's like, yeah, go ahead. By all means, as long as you can store it and it doesn't impede on your life, because real hoarding is when it impedes on your life. Yes. Like you can't move around in your house and things like that. It's dangerous. Then it's not so good.
I had a friend like that. He didn't have any hockey stuff, but he had toys everywhere. I met him down at on Queen Street, one of the this old on Queen Street. They have all these little stores, and it was one of those vintage dealer stores. And I went in, and this guy was there. I met him. He started talking a little bit of hockey. He said, "Oh, I might have some stuff." And then I came over to his house. He lived alone. His mom had just died. And there's a path through the whole house. Christmas tree is still up. It's July. And there's a path through the whole house, right to the kitchen. Everything, toys everywhere, expensive toys, up the stairs, books all the way up. I was like, oh my God, I have a video of that. And when I convert it, I'm going to show it somewhere. It's just most amazing thing you've ever seen. Vintage toys from the 50s and 60s, and just lunch boxes in the kitchen everywhere, and just you could only walk through it with one person through the whole house, like
Okay,
one path. It's just very interesting. Those are the things you experience when you're a collector.
I believe that. I believe that. The only thing I would question, the only question I would have then is, in the same vein, um, I'm just trying to think of where the direction I would take with it is that was it a situation that he actually wanted everything, or was it a situation that he couldn't bear to part with anything? Because I think I felt like I've seen both.
I'd say a little bit on the spectrum side of things.
Okay.
So we'd have to really tie that into that
Okay. No, that's fair.
to get that, but normal, but Abby a little bit, just not so. He was a really nice guy, very simple, but and smart. He knew his stuff, like amazing. But just a little bit on the you you have everything. You have a path to your bed. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's funny.
Well,
Like I said,
I think it's one of those things. The reason I asked the question is that I've seen some stuff like that where like I understand it because sometimes now for me sometimes I'll collect something for a while and it'll stack up for a bit, but then I'll get annoyed of it taking up a certain amount of space and then I'll like divest myself of it. It's one of those things where I can hoard some stuff for a little while, but then if it starts getting in my way, I start getting annoyed. And unless I really want it, then it's like okay, then you get selective. It's like okay, there's a couple of these that I want to keep. The rest of it, get out of here because I don't need to fill my space with stuff. I enjoy the space that I have. The condo I have actually has plenty of room for everything that I need and more. But realistically, I would be okay with moving to a smaller space just for the excuse to be like, nope, you don't have the room. Get rid of some of this junk. So like for me, it's like naturally when you have more space, you almost feel like you have to fill it.
sure.
It's always been like this thing, but it's like I don't really need it though. Like I don't.
No.
Now I was going to quickly grab here. Hockey had this comment here. Why question? Why does any content providers bring Stu Stone on their channel? So I was scanning while you were talking while we were chatting about it. There's a podcast called Pack to the Future. Pack to the Future.
Cool.
Because I knew that they had actually done an interview with Stu Stone on their podcast. So I was scanning to find it, and it was the March 6th episode. So they had a conversation with Stu Stone. Pack to the Future podcast, episode 54 on March the 6th. So if you look that up, you'll be able to find it. And they did do an interview with Stu Stone. What I will say though, and I listened to that one, obviously. That's why I was familiar with it. I had to think about it. But I think Stu Stone's an interesting dude. He used to be, he was like a child actor and, he obviously, in the documentary, they go through a lot of his past and stuff. But I think he's in the collecting world and obviously he made they made the documentary, but they also angled it with his story with his dad and stuff like that. So it is, a card documentary, but it's also kind of a family documentary piece with the card as well, because you get to see the expo, you get to see people from the expo. So it's very Canadian centric as well there for that portion of it. But I don't know what, I don't like speaking for myself. I don't know what I would ask Stu Stone that I would want to know. Like, I'm not interested in the actor. Not really interested in the documentarian. Not really interested in his views on the hobby myself. But maybe for some other folks it would be interesting. But that's why I defer you to the episode. So because maybe he answers some of the questions you have, and then it kind of covers it. Because this is something I believe. I believe there are some interview subjects where you might have some curiosities, have some questions, but then after a certain point, it's like, okay, it's not like there's a lot of depth here. I'm curious about some stuff. I have question A, question B, and question C. And then after you've answered those questions, okay, cool. I never need to speak to you again. It's nothing personal, but it's like, there's nothing more about you that I need to know, or nothing more about you that interests me. So it's one of those things where I guess maybe, I guess there just hasn't been enough demand. Because when they were promoting the documentary, I'm sure that they would have been open to doing tons of interviews. I just don't know if there was enough interest.
Yeah, it was a weird, like you said, it was weird. There was a lot of family, father kind of.
It was probably better though that they did that, because if it had been a straight card documentary with the original premise, it would have been, it would have never made it. It would have never made the air. You needed to have that aspect of it. You could have the card piece of it as well, but you needed to have the family drama woven in to make it watchable. Otherwise it wasn't, who cares? It's a guy who had junk era stuff and it was worthless. End of story. The rest of it needed to be there. And then
Well,
you could add the context about the dad owning the card shop, and then add a little bit of that. And
well, Sluggers is pretty big, but that's very much not even Canadiana. It's on just basically Toronto kind of thing. Although they did put out price guides. Sluggers, right?
Yes, Sluggers. That's right.
They put out, they have 3 or 4 of their price guides. So in the 80s, they're putting out price guides. And as a lot of card shops did too, larger ones.
Exactly.
Abdi Cards, they put their own price guide out, but they slammed it with stuff they're selling. So a few others that did the same. It was the Wild West really at that time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Prior to, there was no quote unquote industry standard. You could kind of make whatever you wanted and kind of roll it in. I like Paul's here, picturing hoarding 5,000 count boxes of Greg Jeffries. Paul, no one has to know yet, not yet. So PMN here says there is a tipping point where cards become investments. Yes, the 1980s. For me, collectible cards were printed for the purposes of fun Americana, where modern cards were marketed to the gamble investor. You mean 1980s? They made collector sets in the 1980s. This isn't new. I understand the premise, but sometimes I'll hear folks bring it up. It's like, the 1980s, you mean? You mean 40 years ago? 40? 40? It's been a while. Entire generations of people have been born that have lived in that entire era where it's been that like that the whole time.
Yeah, but not in the comparative values.
In the comparative values, no. But
not even close.
But the attempt was made. They were trying to build something up to it and ramp up to it. And it got to a certain point. But like anything else, when it gets super hot, super fast, and then it shifts down. What happens today is we've got more markets. That's the biggest thing. We have the internet. We can spread this out. We can spread this out in a very different way. We can bring in more potential buyers. We can go international. We don't have to stick domestic. We can expand the market out. So that's a big differentiator of today. Plus we have this thing. Anywhere we go, we can look up information. We can find prices. We can do all kinds of stuff with this. I can buy cards on this thing. I couldn't do that in 1987, 1991. I couldn't do that. This didn't exist. This didn't exist in 2005. This is still, relatively speaking, recent times. So it's like the technology concept was out there, but this wasn't ready. Now the last 15 or so years, we're there now. We're there.
Yeah, for sure.
Vegas Dave is hoarding a storage full of 87 Topps Greg Jeffries. Dare we live the dreams? But he was in 1988, so he's got 87 Topps Greg Jeffries. I want it.
Well, I did notice in 1984, O-Pee-Chee, you could win with the instant winner card, you could win an uncut sheet. I also seen an advertisement for 84 baseball where they sold uncut sheets in the store.
Sure.
And they had a rack for the uncut sheets.
Is this Topps baseball?
It's Topps, yes.
Got it.
It just kind of makes you wonder where they're going at that point. I think that's almost the basic start. As I think we even talked about that prior with regards to Beckett price guides and when they started. And that's basically when that really took off at that time, going into the collector market, coming into being, I wouldn't say dominant at that time, but surging right towards that point where they're surpassing the kids opening packs, chewing gum, and stuff like that. So it's right around that time.
No, absolutely. That's the thing. It's like it's always good to give some context though, because a PMN updates adds a point here. And I don't disagree. Like I understand where PMN's coming from. I get it, but it's one of those fun things we have with the conversation, but it's good. I like when people bring up the question or the concept, because then it gives us an opportunity to be like, by the way, guys, just so you know, in the 1980s, they were starting to ramp up some of these ideas and the price guides came out. And then, but if we want to push back to the 70s, full-time dealers came into effect right around the mid-70s. And by 1980, you had the first national. These things did not exist for collectible purposes. They existed so dealers could do some business. Because if it's not for business, why do you need a full-time dealer? You could go get packs at your convenience store. You could go get packs at the supermarket. You go get packs at this to the other place. If it's just having cards and trading cards, you don't need a full-time dealer. A full-time dealer serves a specific function. Their job is to make money. They're a for-profit business.
Yeah, but the percentage is very small at that point. I was reading one of my price guides, or I think it's a sports news thing. It was from 1973. Sure. They said, Seattle, we got 1,000 people at the show. It's a sports card show.
Yeah.
Bunch of dudes standing around in suits and crazy looking hair, and their boards are all set up weird. It's like, wow, this was the show back then. And, the market always did exist. I get that, but not predominantly until 1990.
Well, it takes time to ramp it up. When it's when it's a new market, you're not gonna snap your fingers and immediately the market is now at that state. It's gotta go through cycles and sophistication and try to move. And then as more money gets pushed in, then you start seeing more of those other elements of it.
Well, yeah, Jefferson Burdick is a typical example where he is parking cards. 2 cents, 5 cents. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, and the big thing with that though is even at his time, he acknowledged that some cars were worth more.
Oh yes,
because they were more desirable, like market dynamics.
He was figuring that out through the 30s, 40s, 50s.
But it was a very basic, crude, primitive version of good old fashioned market dynamics. This card is harder to find, but also people want it. So as a result, this one should be worth more than this other one, which is nice to have, but not as desirable for people building their sets and stuff.
Yep. So, anyways, nobody answered.
Yeah, it looks like it didn't get any takers on that one. So quickly, I'll read Paul's comment, and then I'll follow up with PMNs. So Paul was marveling his ability to accumulate a couple of rainbows, including one-on-ones, purely because of the internet. Yes, it's created a market where now you can access certain things. If you're trying to build certain sets or cards or put together this grouping of cards, just having access gives you the ability to do it, where before you would have been like, hopefully you have a big enough collector network where people can talk to each other and maybe get back to you. Now you can kind of create your own digitally, and suddenly someone reaches out and says, hey, so-and-so has this in this venue where you maybe didn't see it. And it's super helpful. So Topps Tiffany sort of investment product. Yes. Basically, Tiffany was a collector set. It was designed, it was a limited production run.
Yeah.
And it was designed to be for collectors. So it suddenly created this scarcer version, include Filigrossi as well, to a certain degree as well.
Well, the quality was bumped up,
exactly. But that's the thing though. Like they understood they were trying to upmarket this. They're like, it's similar to the other card, but better.
Where was Ken? Rarer. Where was Ken during that time?
During the mid 1980s?
Yeah.
I think he was doing some business even back then because his dad was doing some stuff as well. I'd say by the 1980s it was Ken. Actually, we had some fun. I don't know if you caught that section of it, Bobby. We did have some fun with on Dave and Steve's podcast. We did have some fun talking about the Golden thing and talking about like the late 80s or early 90s when he was doing the stuff with Don West.
Yes, I remember.
The Shop at Home.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it's out there. Like you don't have to look too hard. Like we have this thing we've referenced called the internet. You can go to YouTube, punch in Ken Golden and, Shop at Home or Ken Golden and, Don West, and you will find clips.
And there's the other guy that was with him. And he used to sit on this wooden perch or something. I remember this wooden bench or something. I just vaguely remember. So it's been a long time. But I was watching stuff back then, and then they had those the online shopping club and all that other stuff that was going on. It was interesting times.
Well, here's the funny thing, though. Like, it's not to the same degree. But in the Canadian Shop at Home, we have they have what's called the Coin Show. I don't get to watch it very much anymore, but a couple of times a week, they'll have the Coin Show. And it's this dealer based out of Canada who does business through there where he puts together packages and things like that. It's not as over the top like zany, the same way they do it, but he would sell tons of product through Shop at Home.
Yeah.
They got installment plans. So it lives. It still exists to this day. So it's like they'll still do it and that type of show. So they have their blocks, programming blocks, and go, in this hour, you can buy this, and they got installment payments and the whole 9 yards. It's all there. It's like investment grade this, investment grade that. Now, the thing is, some of that stuff, you can probably justify it. Some of it is because it's not like the 1990s or the 1980s where like you can make certain outlandish claims that no one will call you out on. It's like, we have the internet today. So it's like some of it has to hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah.
It's like, if this is actually a legitimately rare piece, okay, fine, you can sell it. Maybe you mark it up, but at least it has to be like, there has to be some legitimacy to it. You can't just make stuff up because literally somebody will grab one of these things and be like, that's not true. So you got to be a little more careful. You got to be a little bit less, false advertising is not going to fly in real time when people can fact check you on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. But they never really sell anything that you can really, truly, exactly check on.
Here's what I'll tell you. I haven't checked one in a while, but I have definitely seen where he's done like set runs of Canadian silver dollars, where he'll like sell the different silver dollars because the Canadian silver dollar started in 1935. So it'd be like, okay, so you can have all the silver dollars from 1935 until like 1989 or something like that. And they'll have all the different ones and they're all in like a certain grade. And here you go. This is the average price per. And I looked at it. I ran my own numbers and I go, well, based on what these sell for, it's about right. He included a markup, which you could get from any dealer who would ask. But it's pretty close. It wasn't outlandish. Let's put it that way. So sometimes they'll have stuff like that where it's like, no, if you don't already have it, this is like a good starter set. You might want to upgrade a couple of the pieces, but for the most part, it's fine.
So basically, it's just a spot price on silver.
It depends on the item.
They're not going to give you any rare ones, so you know.
Well, the years there's only certain years that have any rarity to them. So like there's certain key years
on prior. There's I did coins too.
Yeah, I do. I will say though, I like the 35 and 36 because that is the old king with the full crown on it. Yeah. So the first couple of years of it is actually pretty nice. They're nice ones.
Yeah, I used to collect coins, and my house got broken into one day, and I didn't collect coins anymore.
There you go. You did until you didn't.
Yep. Then I said, I'll go back into hockey. Okay.
There you go. So Sanderson, or I watched Don West to see if he was going to have a heart attack at live TV. That was his whole thing. He did get amped up. That's why I made the joke on the podcast. I go, you don't need a pre-workout. You just watch some clips of Don West. He's all pumped up. He's like, it's like, I'm ready for my workout. Just play some clips and then you can have some fun with that. But anyway, I've actually been monitoring as we've been talking. I've been having some fun here. A couple of the folks on this text thread that I've got here have been doing almost play-by-play of part of WrestleMania. They've really been into it. Like it's been amusing me too. It's been amusing.
I haven't been watching that actually.
No, not in the chat, but it's been in this text thread that I'm in with a couple of the guys.
Oh,
there.
Gotcha.
And they're like doing a back and forth on it. I'm just sitting like, really, guys? Really?
During my show.
Yeah, I was like doing the play-by-play of it. I listen. I understand. I know they're into it, so hey, let them have their fun.
Sure.
It is night 2 of WrestleMania after all. Night 2. So Paul says amped up or the devil's dandruff. Yeah, exactly. Listen, you got to do what you can, Paul. If you need to have your workout, you can watch some Don West or you can do some cocaine. So whatever works for you.
Yeah. Where's Charles? No.
Oh, he was on earlier, so I don't know. He might still be listening. Yeah.
What about cocaine?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, the best.
What, that didn't come up in your conversation? Nothing about cocaine?
No.
Disappointment, Bobby. Disappointment.
No, did you watch the show?
No, I said during the show because it started before I started. I watched it up until the last little bit. Then I had to flip on because I started my live stream.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we went on.
I watched a good chunk of it. Yeah.
We went on to 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I didn't catch like the last 10 or 15 minutes, but up until that point, I caught all of it.
Yeah, it was just a few other questions and simple talk about hobby, and it was fun, enjoyable.
That's good. So there you go. Do you think early to mid 1980s hockey stickers are currently priced too cheap? Why no less for these stickers? That's the classic question right now. Bob, you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure, because I just priced them out and I couldn't believe how cheap they really are.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'll come right back, but then go for it.
What's that?
No, I said I'm gonna come back in a second, but
go ahead.
For it on the
I'll carry it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so the stickers, I went through most of the stickers from the 80s up. There's a couple in the early 70s, obviously, but I think you're probably talking about the 80s stickers. And from 85, Topps did an insert of stickers. Topps and O-Pee-Chee did the first in 85, 86. Topps and O-Pee-Chee both put out in lieu of the expansion of, what was it? I can't even remember now. Oh, it was the all-star teams or the subsidiary cards. So they threw them all in the sticker set. So they ran the same sticker set all the way through from 85. And honestly, if you're grading them, they do work out. Unfortunately, for the most part, they don't. They're very cheap. I don't know why they don't get as much as respect as they should. The Gretzky and Lemieux do well. Some of the Luc Robitaille with his rookies there in those stickers, but they're really down low. I don't know why. I think they should be a little bit more, but they made so many of them, and I guess they just never went over very well. But O-Pee-Chee didn't really do any inserts after 85. They stuck strictly with the cards, where Topps kept going with that same sticker set over and over and over again. It's kind of sad, because O-Pee-Chee usually did a lot more than Topps when it regarding cards. But we always had more in our sets, and they would just do the basic set and throw same 25. Well, the stickers, 25 and 2550. I think. No, was there 50 stickers? I can't remember.
Mhm.
That was a few weeks ago doing them.
Right. No, that sounds fair. There you go. So thanks you for the reply. Perfect. Good stuff. I always find that stuff kind of tricky because I think it's a cool add-on. As like a player collector, I can definitely see the value. Or if you want to put a set together, I can definitely see value. But it's one of those things where I guess it just depends. I always think I take it as a more general view. Anytime anybody asks, like, it could be stickers, it could be anything. Insert thing here. And my question is always, okay, cool. If it's is it priced too low? Is it too cheap? Well, it's cheap because people didn't want it. If people wanted it, it would be priced higher, because then they would have sold more of it and the price would have gone up accordingly. Dealers like making money. So if they realize that people want to buy this stuff, they're like, wait a minute, I'll increase the price, because if you want it that badly, you'll pay more.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that the stickers, and they were divided up between helmet stickers, like from 85 up. Helmet stickers was half the set, and the other set were players.
Sure.
So maybe that has a little bit to do with it too. If you want a full set, but then you got to get the stickers, and then there's variations of the stickers, so you don't even want to collect those. So it's kind of complicated, but it's late 80s, so there's not many other stickers earlier. There's 73. You had insert stickers. Not many other stickers, really.
Now I'll ask you a question. This is semi-related, but not completely. But I'm curious about it. I think the answer is no, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. When they did the hockey stickers, it's one player per sticker, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to double check.
It's not the sticker book stickers. No, we're talking about the insert stickers. I assume he was talking insert stickers. Was he not?
I think so. No, I think that's what he's referring to. The reason I'm asking the question is because I remember in baseball they had a couple of years where they did some stickers where they would use two players, and what was always interesting about that is that sometimes it wasn't always the same two players. Mm-hmm. So, like, say you collected a certain player, you could have variants. It was not dissimilar to what they did in the, I want to say the 1980 Topps basketball set, where they had the three players and it was like these mini cards perforated.
Yeah,
so like if you could have a Larry Bird rookie, a Magic Johnson rookie, or a Magic Johnson Larry Bird rookie. Mm-hmm. So you could have these variants that always made it a little bit different, a little interesting. So as a collector,
smart.
Yeah, as a collector, if you really wanted to like chase, you could be like, oh, I want my player. It's like, okay, so you want your player with this accompanying player, this accompanying player, this accompanying player, or this one.
Exactly.
There might be three or four of them. So all of a sudden you had more things to chase, technically, other than just the one. That's why I was curious if they had more than one.
Yeah, stickers are just stickers. And the sticker book stickers are even cheaper. Yeah. But some of the graded ones, the Lemieux 85 sticker from the sticker book, one just sold for $1,100. That was a 9.
Yeah, I think it's become a matter
US.
of like, I think it's become a matter though of like what Victor puts here. It's like with today's inflated prices, it might be a good option. I think some people are doing exactly that because they're sitting there going like, okay, how much is the main card worth? X. Oh, how much is a sticker? It's the same year. Oh, let me chase a sticker. Like looking at it as about now, as soon as more people start doing that, the price adjusts accordingly. Magically.
Well, the Jordan sticker, that's a different story.
Exactly.
The hockey stickers are so low on the totem pole, it's not really good.
Well, that's the thing. But that's become a conversation piece for a lot of folks because they're like, oh, is hockey underpriced? It's like, technically, no. Hockey is priced less because less people were interested. Yeah. Stop. Now, if people who don't actually care about hockey decide to spend money on hockey, then yes, then I promise you the price will go up. But that doesn't mean that hockey has suddenly gotten the attention and now it's got what it deserved. Hockey got what it deserved. Hockey already has what it deserves. But if more people come in with money and increase and are willing to pay more, then the price will increase. And then those who are already holding will be thrilled and happy, which is fine. That's okay. But don't act like that was like this predetermined thing where like it was going to happen for sure. It's like, no, there's money to be made. So that's why. That's why I used the Sasha T example where the one guy was trying to talk him into the Ovechkin and the Crosby SPX rookies. And I go,
Mhm.
I love those cards, by the way. The SPX one is one of my favorites of both those guys. I
Mhm.
love the design. I enjoy the way it's designed. I like it. Aesthetically, it pleases me to see that card. But the thing is, he doesn't know anything about hockey. But he's also a businessman. He understands that there's potentially, he's looking at it as an opportunity, which is nothing wrong with that. But if
Yep.
people do that, then the price will go up. Not because
Mhm.
they care about the sport, but because they see an opportunity. It's not related to the sport. It could have been cricket. It doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
could have been bowling. It doesn't make a difference.
Well, I guess that's where it gets into, is the player underrated, the set underrated, which is underrated. If it's underrated, then it's just not there.
Yeah. It's underrated for a reason. People were not interested.
Newer with the newer stuff, I can understand this guy's underrated because I really see something in him or something. But
That's
everything
possible.
that's past, everything that's
possible.
history,
Sure.
is if he's underrated, then.
They didn't get better suddenly. the story has been written.
But then the cards went up in the 80s. So you look at, was Messi underrated? Obviously so, because his card went from nothing to 20K. Lemieux, all these guys were they underrated or undervalued, or were they just a victim of the circumstance of the investment crowd coming in?
Yeah. So I'll touch on. So we got the next two are directly related to that concept anyway. So Sanderson Dora says, "How about the small sticker socks put out during the '80s? I really like them, but they're worthless. I have a Hall rookie sticker, but nobody cares about it." Well, you just wait until they find out it's underpriced, Sanderson Dora. Then someone might care about it, and then the price will go up. It's usually the way it works. So there we go. So PMN says, I just don't understand why a sticker is so much devalued to a picture on a piece of cardboard, because more people want the picture on a piece of cardboard. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not that it's bad. There's nothing wrong inherently. To be clear, just so we're clear on our position, there is nothing inherently wrong with a sticker.
No.
There are times where I enjoy collecting. For my player, I'll buy the sticker, I'll buy the base card, I'll buy both because I have use for them in my collection.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're telling me that I'm buying the card, that I can buy a card of X just generically, or the sticker, I have less interest in the sticker.
Yeah.
Not because the sticker's bad, but just because I'm not as interested. Panini's had stickers for years.
Decades.
Exactly. But the thing is, like, were people interested in that? For the longest time, the answer was no.
In Europe, yes, they were.
Sure.
It was actually
sure.
it was actually more of a European thing.
Exactly.
Because of Panini and Letraset and all these other companies that did different types of collectibles. We're just we're predetermined to enjoy the hockey cards because that's what we started with and ran for so many decades.
Sure.
And then stickers kind of came in the 60s, I guess, more so than any other time. And then they slowly worked their way up into the 70s and 80s, and then they kind of faded away again.
Yeah.
Because sticker books took over, and then they just kind of, it was sticker, the 80s sticker era ended, and everything just fell apart after that. So,
yeah. No,
sticker wise.
Yeah.
Do they do stickers or anything in the last 10 years?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They were still making Panini stickers and stuff for quite a while. I'm pretty sure they still do.
I meant as inserts, sorry.
Oh, as inserts. As inserts.
That's extra.
You know what I would say? I haven't paid too close attention, but I can tell you that they were making like the collector's choice stickums for a while, because those were stickers in packs.
Stickums.
Yeah, they literally just called them stickums. That was the insert name, but it was a sticker. It was a sticker in the pack, and then you could have it and you could peel it off and put the player on your notebook or whatever. That was what it was designed for. But it was there.
Yeah, exactly.
But it existed, and it went for quite a while, I would say. I just don't know if the last couple of iterations still have it. I don't know if Collector's Choice is still being made the same way, though, to be fair. Because I think it got phased out for like MVP and stuff, so I don't think they use that product anymore. But when they were doing Collector's Choice, I think they still had them.
I think that was the fun part about stickers. Is you could put them on your notebooks, you can put them on all these different things. So it was sort of an extra thing that you can use. Whereas cards, you can't use them; you save them, but there was no alternative use to it. It was just you used it, or you just kept it there. So at least you could put that on your bunk bed, or you could put it somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
As a kid.
So Sanderson Orr here is touching on one of the questions. And again, this is not the first time I've heard this question, so I understand it. So the concept here is stickers should be worth more in mint condition because they're stuck in thing. But it goes back to what we talked about earlier. You're talking to the scarcity piece, you're talking to the survivability of the item, all true. But if no one wants it, why would they be worth more?
Yes, exactly. But
You still have to want it.
exactly. We'll jump back, and we were talking about when the collectors really started taking over from the regular kids just buying stuff.
Sure.
1990, we really don't have too many stickers after that point, and that's when the guys, people started to collect and started to manufacture to the collector, opposed to the kids. Mm-hmm. So interesting how it stopped right about that time.
Right. But that's the thing, though. Like, any conversation about any collectible in any genre you want, where you say like, oh, why isn't it worth as much as X or as much as Y? I throw the same answer that I throw to real estate, because I like to watch real estate videos where they'll show off a house or whatever. And oftentimes if you see a house in like a place like California or New York or whatever, and it's a really nice house or whatever, people will be like, oh my God, why is it that expensive? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, I wouldn't pay that much for that house. I see the comments in there and I always chuckle, because it's like, because people are willing to pay it. They would rather, but I can buy a mansion in Montana. I go, that's because no one wants to live in Montana. Yeah. If they wanted to live in Montana, then you wouldn't be able to buy a mansion. You'd be able to buy a shack, and there would be 50 million people in Montana, if that's where people wanted to go. It's not because it's one is inherently better than the other. For some folks, they would prefer to live in Montana. So good news for them, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Great. But the reason it's cheaper is because less people want to do that. Those other places, like, oh, but traffic and all this, is like, and yet people still want to go there. Mm-hmm. Because if they didn't, then the price would be lower. That's it. That's all it is. It's still supply and demand. Those rules have not been violated. The concept's still the same. You may not like it. It may not work for you, but enough other people do. And in the case of the sticker, enough other people don't. So the good news is, if you want the sticker, good news, you can get it cheap.
There you go.
Take advantage of it. Like,
thank goodness it is.
I don't see the downside. I hear so much complaining about the prices, and you're telling me that it should be worth more. Like, make up your minds. Which do you want?
Keep it cheaper.
Like,
there
we have the cheaper thing for you, and you want to raise the price on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah.
So anyway, here,
buy them all.
Yeah. So maybe psychologically knowing the sticker could be separate from backing card, giving the precedence fluency. I think for some people that may be a factor, but there's a variety of different reasons why it may be less interesting to somebody. That could be a thing for some folks. Maybe it's possible, but it is what it is.
The 20s cards are really flimsy.
Exactly. So there you go. So P-Man, Sasha T doesn't know who Cosby are. They have two of the best pocket players in the last 15 years. Sasha's a good social media, but gets too much credit for his knowledge. I think I understand where you're coming from with that, and I get the general premise of it, but nobody is really that knowledgeable in all four sports, and hockey people don't want to accept this, but I'm going to say it for you. Hockey is like number 7 on a bunch of people's lists of sports. Like, insert some generic things here, and those are ahead. Like, American Idol is ahead on the list for some people in terms of sports in America. It depends on who you ask. Sasha is mainly a basketball guy who is dipping his toe into some of these other areas. Hockey isn't even on his radar. He lives in California. Hockey's not on his radar. When he did a recent video, he was playing one-on-one basketball with one of the other card guys, and they were playing for a couple of slabs as kind of a wager but they're playing basketball. As a young guy in California, he's probably paying attention to basketball. Basketball is also the hottest market. So from a business perspective, it behooves him to pay attention. You want him to talk your ear off about Kobe? He can do that. Or LeBron or whatever. He can have a spirited debate about you. Mm-hmm. But the idea that he doesn't know who Crosby and Ovechkin are, he doesn't need to. It's not important for him to know that. For him, it's only an investment vehicle. He doesn't care who those guys are. Why would he? Why does he need to?
Some of the best podcasts, not best, I meant most visited podcasts, are guys who are new in the hobby.
Exactly.
Who really know nothing.
Yes.
And how many people are watching me? There you go. Upset.
But they just, but for that one, they seem like they've got a friendly persona. People enjoy listening to them for whatever it is. And also in the realm of investing, quote unquote.
Yes.
Somebody who's buying and trading constantly at least understands that portion of it.
Yeah.
So if you ask Sasha about how to buy and sell, well, he's doing that. He's a practitioner. He's demonstrating that he is flipping cards constantly. So somebody could be that's why I make a separation. You tell me so-and-so is in the hobby for 40 years. That's great. But are you in the hobby for 40 years as a dealer? Or are you in the hobby for 40 years as a collector? Your knowledge base is different. If it's 40 years as a collector, that means you can tell me incredible things about a lot of sets and certain distinction things. But then if you've never sold a card in your life, You could be a deal. You could be a collector for 40 years, and Sasha knows 100 times more than you do.
Yes.
So it's two different knowledge bases. It depends on what we're talking about.
Mhm.
So yes, if you want to talk about Crosby and Ovechkin, Sasha knows nothing. If you want to talk about flipping cards, he knows plenty.
Yeah.
More than enough to get by. Let's put it that way.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have a show that would last. Or we wouldn't be talking about him right now.
Correct. But that's the thing. And also, as far as being a good social media persona, which you talk about here, well, that's a skill too. Because it's not just having a social media, it's being able to develop it and grow it, which in turn helps your ability to then do the business that you're also trying to do, which is a skill in itself.
I think he's sort of like a pioneer of what's going on within the hobby. You know, all the stuff
Sure.
that started in this time period where we're going through record prices, and he's actually a pioneer, if you really want to get into it, of what he's doing, where he's going around to shows, showing the deals right up front, right in front of your face. Nobody else has really ever done that. They go to shows and they say, "Oh, I'm trying to work a deal," and then they show you the after
They'll
effect.
give you the
This is
results.
what I
They'll give you
bought,
the result.
but they don't give you the whole thing along the way. And that was funny. The Charizard deal was just can't beat that one. That was so funny.
Yeah, but that gave him a niche. That gave him a differentiator from everybody else, which
Sure.
immediately put him on a bunch of people's radars. Which you got to respect that. Now, to your point, if the boom continues, even at a lesser degree, even if it slows down, pulls back a little bit, but still things stay pretty consistent for certain areas, which they could. The idea is like suddenly, COVID will be over, everything will crash. Some stuff will. Some stuff will probably keep chugging along. It's not across the board. Nothing is across the board.
No.
You will be shocked. If that's your expectation, you may find yourself disappointed when some stuff does not come back down as far as you're hoping it does. Some stuff will, but other stuff may not. It depends on what you're looking for. But he may be just Gen 1. There may be some, 10-year-old kids that are watching Sasha, looking up to Sasha, and in 5 years or so, you're going to start seeing them.
And they're that person.
They're going to become the next generation version. And then maybe by that point, Sasha moves on to a different business, does something else.
Yeah.
But by then, it doesn't matter. He already laid the roots. He did his thing, moved on to something else. And then the young kids of today then take over that mantle and become the new vloggers of the hobby.
Yes.
So it can become its own genre, and maybe other ones imitate and then take it to their own spin on it.
That's an entertaining watch. It's very entertaining to watch, just to see how things are going down. And we all want to go to shows. I think he's taking advantage of everybody being sort of locked down and can't go out to shows, and he's going out to shows for us. So we're living vicarious through his show visits.
Yeah, and from our perspective, it really comes down to I monitor it because I try my best to monitor as much hobby stuff as I can to get the full breadth of what's going on and who's saying what. But it's not going to be, because I see Victor's comment there, and I'll get to it in 2 seconds. It's not going to be for everyone. Just so we're clear, I'll refer to it because there's certain things that I think are worth referring to give you context. I'm not telling you to watch the videos. It may interest you. It may not interest you. It depends on what you're looking for. It depends on what your flavor is. That's why there's so many different YouTube channels, so many different podcasts, so many different. You got to look for what works for you. But it's not going to be everything. Nobody has that much time. Even with the amount of stuff that I do get a chance to watch, I have to put a cap on it. There has to be a limit. Sometimes I'll hear about this XYZ, and I'll talk to somebody who already saw it, and I'll be like, "Can you give me the rundown of like what's on it?" They'll explain it to me. I go, "Okay, that sounds like a skip to me," because I don't have enough time. I can't do it.
You're not worth my time. What's the beer of the day?
This one, left of the dial. So this is from microbrewer here, Amsterdam Brewery, over in. They got their microbrewer over in Toronto.
Yeah, that's where they had the show. Where what's his name had his show, not anymore.
But some of the beers they make are actually quite good. I've been very impressed with, especially with the ones that they do seasonally. I think they do a pretty good job. So that is a porter that has like notes of chocolate and coffee.
Wow. Well, the chocolate coffee is pretty popular.
It is. Yeah. That's why I wasn't surprised that they put together that combination, but it's pretty good. I think they did a solid job with it. I'm pretty pleased with it. So good evening, Greg. Thanks for popping in. Okay, so P-Man. It's okay that he doesn't know hockey, but people put the guy on a pedestal. You have no control over that. I understand the sentiment, but you have no control over that. So that's the video that I was talking about earlier, Bobby. My premise is, at a certain point, guys, just let it go. It's like, oh, but because people literally get upset. They're like, oh, but you're putting him on a pedestal, and they get mad. And I'm like, what are you going to do about it?
It's the anger in the hobby that has to come out.
Well, no, I get it, but I'm like, it's misplaced. Like
It's
you're not going to fix anything. You're literally getting angry about nothing.
it's misplaced only by the people who misplace it. It doesn't really matter. Who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah. But that's my point.
Enjoy
I'm like saying, at the end of the day, if it bothers you, don't watch it. If it makes you mad, don't watch it. Don't
His
listen
talking, his voice bothers me, but I still watch him. And,
to it.
you know,
At some point, you'll find out that he had like throat cancer or something when he was a child. And
I
you're
don't
like,
think so.
Yeah. So,
See, I can get away with it because I don't know that.
there you go. Exactly.
You know, ignorance is bliss. It really
Exactly.
works.
Yeah. So I have no issue with him, but he has major blind spots. Yeah, that's fine. Can't even name the biggest hockey player. That's fine. But can you name the biggest cricket player in the world? I can't. I have no idea. But cricket is extremely popular, Bobby. No, the reason I'm using that reference is that in parts of the world, cricket is super popular. Like, I mean, huge. It's monstrous. They have multi-day games. Like people go and attend these, pre-COVID, but people would go and attend these multi-day games in a stadium.
Mhm.
And some of these cricket players are superstars. I don't know who the biggest cricket player in the world is. I have no idea. I don't watch the sport. I don't care.
I
also
don't even
couldn't-
understand the sport. It's so
I don't understand the
jacked.
sport either. Yeah,
I
don't
tried to
understand
learn it one time.
I don't understand it. Like I don't understand the sport. I don't know who's good in it. I don't, but I also don't care. Soccer. Soccer is the biggest global sport. If you throw some names at me that are like the biggest names, I might have heard of them. I've never watched a game of them. I've never watched a highlight. I don't know who the hell they are.
Pele?
They mean nothing to me. I know Pele just because, like I said, my mom waxes poetic about Pele. But like, do I know anything about Pele? Not a damn thing. Not one thing. But he's a big name. But he means nothing to me personally. Nothing. Neither do any of the current soccer players who are superstars. But I go to Europe, superstars, massive, huge. So I understand the premise, but it's like, guys, everybody has blind spots. I used two really popular sports. I didn't pick niche fringe sports. I intentionally picked two very popular ones where if you don't know, they'd stare at you going like, what are you, an idiot? You don't know XYZ soccer player? You don't know this cricket player? 50,000 people went to go watch them play this game, whatever. And it's like, I have no idea who that is. But that's because I don't know. And it's not my genre and it's not what I'm into. So I get it. So I'm including Victor's comment here. So trying to like his channel, but struggling with it. Well, that's the thing though. I would say don't try too hard, Victor. If it doesn't interest you, it doesn't interest you. It serves a purpose for me because it gives me a window to what Bobby was saying earlier. It gives me a window to a certain aspect of what the hobby is doing now with certain people because they do vlog it. So I can see how they're interacting with each other. I can see the way they're doing their deals and things like that. It is good for me to know. It's good for me to pay attention to. But from a strictly collector standpoint, it may have zero value to you. It might not be worthwhile watching to you. Watching him go to Burbank for the 57th time and negotiate a deal might not be worth it to you to watch.
If those ones do get boring after a while. Yeah.
Sure. But I'm saying I'm watching it for a purpose. I'm not watching it strictly for entertainment. I'm looking at it with my analytical hat on. I'm paying attention to certain cues and certain things they'll say and do. But if you're watching it for entertainment, it might not be your cup of tea.
Well, the Burbank, it's funny you say that. It's almost like when he goes to the Burbank, I go, haven't I seen this one? I think I saw this one. But he's been there 50 times.
He's always going to go to that's
go in the back room with the guy.
It's part of his routine, Bobby. You have your coffee in the morning. He goes to Burbank. It's the daily routine. And the thing is, you have to at least appreciate that he is consistent. He takes very few days off. He like keeps going and going and going.
He's young. He can do that.
Yeah.
And didn't we when we were kids?
And that's good. I think it's good because he's trying to build a business. So why not? Let him have it.
And he has to do that because he's making money from this. He wants to build his future, and I have to give him credit for it. Do I agree with the cards? And we can go back to that other question. I don't really. I don't see the values in them, but that's the marketplace. I don't have to like it, but I respect it.
Yeah.
It's there. I mean, I can't make it disappear. It's there in front of me. It's just not for me, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and that's why I include that comment from Victor. I said if it's not intriguing to you or it doesn't interest you, then good news. There's a ton of content out there.
We're still friends. We're still friends, Victor. We all don't have to like the same things.
That's right.
And like I said, I have a problem with his voice, but
but I'm also trying to save Victor some time because he's saying I'm trying to like. Don't try to like. If you like, you like. If you don't like, then move on.
No likey, whatever.
Yeah. No, but this is general for everybody. if you watch something and it genuinely doesn't grab you, maybe give it a second shot. But if it still doesn't grab you, move on. Just move on.
Yeah.
Save yourself the time. Save yourself the time. There's so much stuff out there still.
Oh,
so
with
much.
movies, you go on that and you say, "Oh, I love that John Carter movie." And my friend said, "That was horrible." I went, "Oh, it was really cool." Well, each to their own.
I like this one here. Hockey's not cricket. You're right. It's not a top 4 or 5 sport. It's not. Sorry, it's not. It's got its pockets internationally, in Europe, in certain pockets of it. In Canada, it's a hotbed. It's got its pockets in the U.S. Cricket is a bigger sport internationally, and so is soccer, internationally, than hockey will ever be.
Mhm.
Hockey is not that.
No.
If you're in Canada, you think it is. It's not true. It's not true.
No.
Because hockey has to struggle to get a half decent TV deal. That's how little they're thought of. They've
But-
done better, but they're still not. They struggle. They barely struggle.
But in sports cards, it is fourth.
Sure. But that's partially, I would say, because I think that there is, in terms of popularity, I don't think popularity, and I've said this before, I don't think popularity translates to sports card sales. I think you can enjoy a sport and not buy the cards. If it's not your thing, like if you don't care about the cards, you don't care about the cards. But you
Yeah.
can religiously follow the sport. You can
Sure.
be there like, I can go find those people and they can tell me everything about the sport and be obsessive about it. But it's like, oh, well, do you ever buy any cards of this stuff? And they're like, why?
Yeah.
And I would totally understand that.
Yeah. Well, they didn't grow up in the same kind of marketplace that we did, and it's totally different.
Yep,
It's totally different. Everybody does their own thing. If you grew up around cards and everybody's opening cards, this is what I grew up around. We all went to the same place. We opened our cards, put the gum in your mouth, looked at your cards, traded with your friends. Yeah, we all did that. The ones who didn't, they did other things. Maybe they got into non-sports. Maybe they didn't even like sports cards.
Mhm.
It's just something we did.
No,
But you
so-
almost felt left out if you didn't have any money. You were pissed,
Mhm.
and all your buddies are doing it. It was like, damn, if I could find a dime somewhere, I'd buy a pack. Yeah, 10 cents back then. Yeah, I know.
Big money, Bobby. Big money.
Yeah.
I like this comparison. It's like you're really going to compare Michael Jordan to anybody in hockey, really? Michael Jordan is a global brand, literally a global brand. Like, forget about the basketball. Forget about the basketball for a second. Forget it. There are kids who probably don't know Michael Jordan's a player. That's probably real. I bet, but they know what the basketball shoe is. Oh, did you get a new pair of Jordans? When's the last time you got a new pair of Gretzky's?
When's the last time you played a hockey game at Tim Hortons?
I know. But do you get what I'm saying though? Like there's a very big difference between a global brand. Michael Jordan has transcended the basketball portion of his life. He's still obviously a monster in the world of basketball, but he is also a clothing and apparel and shoe brand on top of being. So when I say Jordan, I could mean the basketball player or I could mean the shoe. And I'd be accurate on both counts. Like both could be correct. But Wayne Gretzky's the biggest hockey player ever. But he's not even touching that level. He's not even close.
No.
And Crosby and Ovechkin, bless them, are not a tenth of that. It's just like, no. So I get his point, but it's like we gotta take off the Canadian glasses for a second and be like, let's think globally for a second. Hockey doesn't register. It registers in pockets. You got to go. If I go to the right place and I ask the right question, I'll get the answer you're looking for. But if I go to other places, they're like, what are you talking about? Who?
Yeah, that's our culture up here. The U.S. culture, obviously, it's the other sports, and the European culture is different as well.
Yeah, I get it. So I'm convinced the soccer mania as Americans convinced each other the biggest sport and this place could explode. That could very well be. I'll quickly zip through a couple of these. So 4x4 Rubicon. So good evening. First time I've seen a comment from you today. So on Bobby's point, not seeing values. I agree. How does a 2012 Prism LeBron out of 10 sell for golden for $550,000? Yet a Magic Johnson sells for 200. I'm assuming you mean 200,000. But it's strictly who will spend the money on it. That's all it is. It's not Magic Johnson's better or worse, or LeBron's better or worse. Although you could argue statistically right now, but it's nobody was willing to pay more than that for the Magic Johnson.
And who really cares? Those aren't even people
That's
that even come to these rooms and talk. All that other is upper echelon money that controls the marketplace for most everything. But it shouldn't even be a discussion. Who cares if it sells for 500, 150,000? If you own a card and you have a vested interest, it'll bring up your smaller, lesser grade card. Yeah, okay. Otherwise, I think we're almost over that point of hitting records and being surprised at anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I got you. So here we go. So yeah. So sadly, Wayne Gretzky is only known in maybe 10 countries. Probably a little more than that. Let's be a little fair. Let's be a little fair to him. But but the general premise though, like, is kind of playing off of what I'm saying. So in generally we're in agreement.
There's 10 European countries he beat. You know.
I would say there's 10, but I would say there's certain countries.
Sweden.
I would say there's certain countries where hockey is so strong, ingrained into the national sports culture and all that. Because here's the thing. I'm not speaking. There's a lot of times where I will troll and speak in hyperbole and have some fun with it. I'm taking this question seriously but I'm saying, like, in seriousness, Wayne Gretzky is a giant in his sport, but his sport is niche on the worldwide scale because there's plenty of countries where ice hockey is not a thing. And it's never going to be a thing. They don't care, which is okay. That's fine. Basketball, you can play outside or inside.
Yeah.
Like, you just need a net. You need a net and a ball. You're good to go. Soccer, that's part of the appeal of soccer, is that you can play it indoor or outdoor. You just need a ball. Like, any sport that requires the minimum amount of equipment is going to have a natural advantage. Hockey requires a ton of equipment to play properly, and you need a rink. So it's like you need certain things to make it work. So it makes it
even
naturally
ball
more
hockey.
difficult. Yes, you still need certain things
Sticks,
in order to make that work.
Net, ball.
Correct. So it's like you and each player has to have a stick. Otherwise, it's going to be very awkward. It's not going to work very well if only some players have some and some don't.
Well, the goalies sometimes use a jacket.
Sure.
Remember those days, guys?
But instinctively, that you need those things. Like, that equipment is required. If you've got one soccer ball, you can get a lot of kids onto a field and play a game. You can make that work with one soccer ball. That's all you need. One basketball, you can still get a game done.
If they're playing ball hockey and they don't have a stick, you're back at soccer.
There you go. Fantastic. Yes. So anyway, so here, I'll just touch this on. Jordan is no better than Gretzky. I get you, but to a large swath of the international sporting world, they're not going to agree with you. Both are the greatest in the sport during that time and era. That we agree. But Jordan is no better than Gretzky in that sense. Sure, but who cares? No, like, who cares? Seriously. That's great. But your point was that hockey should be higher because, Gretzky is a big name. But he's a big name. But for a lot of parts of the world, he's just a dude. Michael Jordan, if nothing else, is a brand. So again, that's why I made the separation. I can separate the man from the brand because the brand can transcend the man. After Michael Jordan's dead, if Jordan Brand exists, he'll continue to exist. After Gretzky's dead, he's dead.
He's gone.
That's it.
Yeah.
He's just a dude. He's just a guy.
You might have some clothing left over from the Bay from Gretzky.
Good Lord.
But yeah.
Okay, what was in the product catalog? Just out of curiosity, what was
it? It was actually a folder. It had. Yeah, they couldn't afford the catalog. See, this is the problem. Jordan would have had a 40,000 page catalog. This folder, a couple of insert sheets that are missing, obviously. Anyways, there you go. That was the new pickup of the day, and then I picked up a nice Gretzky frisbee in an original package.
Yeah.
Yippee Skippy, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let me grab PMN's comment here.
Does anybody know what a frisbee is?
Yeah, I'm not acting like basketball. I haven't made any discussion about the skill level of the two things. I don't care. My conversation is not about the skill level of either one of the guys. I'm not comparing them to each other at all. I am strictly stating that Wayne Gretzky as a global brand is nothing. Michael Jordan is a global brand, very big. That's it. So, but when you're talking about the pricing of things, being a global brand that transcends the sport in certain degrees helps the value of things a lot. If we stick inside the sports realm, it's great. But here's the deal. When we talk about Wayne Gretzky, there's a generation of people who think Bobby Orr is the best. They don't think Gretzky is the best. There's another generation that would try to argue for Howe. It's like there's other guys. Jordan basically has LeBron. That's basically the argument. So, and some people automatically disqualify LeBron because he lost in the championship too many times. So it's a very small group of guys that are in that conversation, where Gretzky's got a couple of guys. If we're talking about strictly statistical dominance, if you want to talk about that, well, Gretzky's got it. But cool, there's a bunch of people that don't care.
But
Even people who like hockey that don't care.
But if the GWG genes that he promoted would have went somewhere, maybe Gretzky might have been a bigger name.
It could be, sure, but I think if Gretzky had decided to take the tact of building up a marketing side of it, like minus the Bay folder, if he had gone past the Bay folder a little higher.
I think he kind of did. That's why he went to New York and LA.
Yeah,
but it didn't work the same way. And he's not a great talker. He's not out in public very much. So, with Jordan, the shoes, as soon as the shoes hit, it's everything. And then the early ones are so collectible and worth thousands and thousands of dollars. And there's a following for these shoe people who manufacture their own shoes and redo Jordans, and whole cult following there.
No, but that was my big point that I was making about that, though, is that I said, remember, if you're talking about value, because that was what the initial conversation was about. It was about why isn't hockey valued more, blah blah blah, compared to basketball, compared to some of these other sports. The other sports was really, it was like, why isn't hockey seen at that level? It's like, because hockey as a sport is not seen at that level. What is seen to has nothing to do with the athleticism. It has nothing to do with how difficult it is to play. It has nothing to do with how impressive live. Most people acknowledge that hockey is an excellent sport to watch live. Probably one of the best sports to watch live. In terms of admiring and watching. Even the people who are not the biggest hockey fans first acknowledge live hockey, phenomenal experience.
Yeah, that
doesn't mean I need the cards.
They're doing all of this on a 1/4 inch of steel.
Correct. Doesn't mean I need the cards.
No.
But we're comparing like the relative values of the cards and stuff like that. It's like, we can acknowledge something's really impressive. I don't need the cards.
It's big in Canada. Exactly. Let's just leave it there. And I think equally as big in the USA in per capita, because us being 10% of so I think we have the same amount in the US just by default, and the amount of teams that are out there too.
I think that's fair. But that's the thing though. But those Canadians in question, well then go point out to your fellow Canadians they should buy more hockey cards and pay more for them. Then you'll fix the market. Like, that's the only solution to your problem. If that's really what concerns you, then tell them to buy more and spend more.
They just did, and it's still
more, Bobby, more, double it. Forget about food. Buy hockey cards. Damn it.
$80K for a PSA 10 Lemieux. Come on, how much more can you go?
800.
800K. That's
damn
fair.
Right.
Because he was just as good as Gretzky,
absolutely,
or better, if he didn't get sick, or. There's so many things
on a per game basis. In the per game basis, there's an argument that could be made. That's what would be funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so those of you who may have caught in the chat, if I've never heard of you, and the first thing I hear of you is like a political statement or like a question that's politically based, just randomly on a sports card thing, you're out. Just letting you know. I'll show you after. Don't worry about it.
Good enough.
Yeah, but it's like, if I was literally sitting there, I was like, that literally has nothing to do with anything we're doing here. You're out. So just to be clear,
politics, religion, no business here.
If it vaguely has something to do with the conversation at hand, I'm willing to entertain
small interjections. Yeah.
If it's completely out of left field and has nothing to do with anything we talked about, you're done.
Yeah. Trolls.
Yeah. And as a head troll, show some style. Show some style.
A little more creativity.
There's some style. Like, I have a higher bar of style that I demand.
Kind of come in soft and go out hard.
Figure out a way to do it. Anyway, so Jordan is the bigger brand in the world. Bobby Orr is the greatest hockey player. Yeah. And that thing is, there is a contingent that will make that argument. That's always been the thing, is that Gretzky's statistical dominance. Look, just go look up the numbers. Go look up the numbers. They're there. I'm not going to argue with you the physical numbers that are there. We can talk about the mitigating circumstances, the eras. We can discuss that. But if we just take raw numbers, guess what? This is done. It's easy.
A forward, a defenseman. You can talk. Yeah. So many different things.
Yeah. There are nuances we can discuss, but if we're just talking raw numbers, then fine, it's done. But again, people don't seem to care that much.
But there's no debating when it comes to Michael Jordan.
And that's
by himself. No comparative to, all the different past stars. Will Chamberlain, Larry Bird. We can go back further, So just nobody compared to Michael Jordan. Whereas you can compare, as Carlos said, you can go back and say or Howie Morenz.
Yeah.
You
All
can at
the
least build. What I'll say is you can at least build a case, and I will always entertain if you want to build a case. But you got to start. You can't start with like a declarative statement and then make that your case. So and so is better than so and so because it's like no, you're gonna have to do better.
my opinion's better than yours. How
Yeah,
that?
like you're gonna have to do better than that. You're gonna have to give me more. If you can give me some more, then we can work with you a little bit. That's fine. But you got to give me a little more than that. Otherwise, it's gonna be a short conversation, and I'm not gonna deal with you very much. So good evening, Brad. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate you. So anyway, so guys, it's been a good conversation, and I'm still good to go for a little bit. I'm monitoring my time, but we're still good. So we're solid there. But it's kind of like what a matter. What do you guys want to talk about? I'm open, but it's just a matter of like, what would you like to discuss? And also in the same vein, I'll remind as well that the link is pinned there. I have pinned the link to the thing. So if you want to join us on here for a bit, you're more than welcome to pop in. You're not required to stay long term. If you want to pop in, say a couple of words, by all means. But you've got the link there if you want to do it. It's StreamYard. And you can use it. You don't have to have a web camera. You just have to have something that can give audio. You can be a disembodied voice if that is your desire. I know some people are scared about showing their background or their faces because they're in a secret camp somewhere.
You think so?
It could be, but that's okay. You can be a disembodied voice. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to show your face if that's your desire. So what's going on with Lafreniere cards? Young guy, got really pumped up, really high price wise. And he's still I think he's still 18.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things like it
A lot
was
of
never
pressure
fair.
on these
Yeah,
kids.
it was never fair. There was no way he was going to be able to do anything with that. So it's like, why?
He didn't have the upcoming talent that I think it was forced upon him to be good because I need to collect your card and make money and be the first one to buy it kind of thing. That's how I think, how people think.
Mhm.
So maybe that's wrong, but I think people are pushed into a situation where they want them to be better than they really are, or maybe to be. We don't even know that. But, and everybody wants to get in. I'm going to buy his rookie card. I know this guy's going somewhere. People have said that for ever since I've been in the hobby.
Mhm.
And sometimes they're right, but mostly they're wrong because there's only so many superstars along those decades. So
For sure. But my thought process always goes back to, and we've talked about this with Lafreniere a little bit here and there. So if he's 18, let's say for the sake of argument, he needs a couple of years to develop and keep working on his game and keep developing inside and keep doing his thing. If he becomes a really good player at 21, 22, which is 3 or 4 years from now, what's the problem? Like, really, what's the problem?
It's a good problem.
That's perfectly fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But it maybe just means that, like, give the kid a break. Give him a chance to fill out and to develop. And by the way, he could very well be a bust. That could be a real thing, too. It could be too much pressure. It could be too much too soon or whatever. Or maybe he spends the next couple of years developing, and then you wake up one day and he's a top-end player in a couple of years.
Mhm.
And that's okay. That's fine. And by the way, if he becomes a good player at 21, 22, that's still great. That bodes well for a long-term future.
Yeah, but I see some of the basketball rookie cards are going for phenomenal money, and they haven't even proved themselves yet. It's just hedging their bets. That's where the gambling comes in, and that takes away from the collecting side of it. Nobody can really collect it if it's $20K for a rookie card of a great guy who's coming up. But will he be great? Will he blow his knee out? Who knows? Will he slam dunk and take his wrist off? We don't know.
No, that's fair. But that's always been the problem with it is that it takes time. It takes time to develop some of these things.
It's a different marketplace now than with that.
But the thing is, though, we make the comparison, right? Mm-hmm. We say like marketplace versus the sport. In the sport, he's got years to develop because of the New York Rangers, where they sit today, if he becomes a really good player in 2 or 3 years and then continues to become a great player over time, they're thrilled. They're thrilled beyond measure. They're happy. That's fine. It's perfectly okay.
And he gets a good team behind him like Gretzky, then...
Like, that's the thing. If Lafreniere, if we revisit this conversation in 7 or 8 years, Lafreniere has developed into a good player or a great player, the Rangers become a great team, and they have some playoff success, heaven forbid win a Stanley Cup, are we complaining about Lafreniere at that point? We're not.
No.
But the people who bought in at the very earliest thing and suddenly were super disappointed and whatever, and then sold off. Well, maybe if you believe that Lafreniere has a long-term solution, maybe you wait until it goes down a little bit and then pick up a couple copies for yourself cheaper. Take advantage, let the first people have it, and then go get your own if you believe.
Yeah, and be the collector. The investor, the investing part will be there if you're a collector. If you're an investor, the collector part will never be there
I
for
think
the
that's
most
fair.
part.
I think that's
Well, not never, but mostly not. So if you start out as a collector and work your way into the hobby and invest that way, I think it's more appreciated in your soul opposed to just coming in and just buying cards and trying to invest in them. You're not even really part of the hobby. You're just part of an investing group of people who want to hedge their bets. Because you just like hockey doesn't mean you care about the cards. You just care about money part of it. And
that was exactly the point, though, that I've said. And it's not just hockey. It's any sport.
any sport.
You can
sure.
be a super fan of any sport you want. Doesn't translate to cards.
Mm-mm.
You can, but it doesn't have to. There can be a disc. Like I said, I use the analogy. The sport that I watch the most games of, top to bottom, is football. I don't really collect football. I'll collect a couple of things here and there, but not really. Not to the same degree as I collect the other sports. And the sports that I collect are probably the ones I watch the least.
Well, here's a good question. How many people do you think that watch the game and that collect cards? What's that difference, or what's the disparity between the two?
It's probably a huge disparity. Because you have to think like some of
There's
the bigger
more collectors
games,
than people who watch. Yeah,
yeah. Well, you have to think.
no, it's the other way around.
But think about like no, seriously, think about football and think about like let's say a big Monday Night Football match, a big one. Gets like 10, 12, 15 million, 20 million viewers, whatever. You think 20 million people are collecting the cards that happen to be happening for players in that game?
10 million, 5 million, 1 million.
I was going to say it might be a smaller fraction. Like now it goes back to a conversation we had months ago. If someone buys a pack or two here and there, does that make them a collector? Or somebody buys singles, does that make them a collector? Or somebody buys a couple of singles? Because when we talked about the number you just said there,
Yeah.
if somebody like buys the odd card here and there, and let's say we count them as a collector, we're being generous, we'll count them. Okay, that's going to help your number. Now, if we're talking about dedicated, focusing on collecting certain sets, certain players, certain teams, whatever, that might be a different number.
I think it depends on the motivation of the purchase.
I get it. No, but what I'm saying is,
are
there's
you
some nuances.
purchasing because you're trying to pull a rookie card so you can put it away or
Yeah.
cash in on it?
Yeah.
That's gambling, and that's not even a hobby. They're not even included. So you can take half of the people who do that casual buy as not even collectibles in the collectors in the hobby. So you can't use them in the equation that you want to use them in. So
No, for sure. I'm just making sure that we make the distinction that there are these different numbers depending on what you're asking.
sure.
There are these different ones depending on what you're asking. So I'm just making sure we have this distinction. So anyway, so quickly I'll touch on this one. 4x4 Rubicon says, what are your thoughts on Pavel Datsyuk cards? Seems undervalued to me. I always love the undervalued question. We always get the undervalued question. I love Pavel Datsyuk. In his day, Pavel Datsyuk was real good.
I saw he was going to be great when he came. I bought all his rookie cards. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
But I did think he was going to be a great player. You could tell.
Here's the thing, and this is really important. I make this very important distinction. You can be a great player for a stretch of time, not necessarily be an all-timer, and your card values will reflect that. Because there's a lot of players who are real good.
Mm-hmm.
Pavel Datsyuk, as in preparation for this conversation, I wanted to make sure I had it in front of me because I otherwise I'd be going from memory. The thing with Pavel Datsyuk, super high skill level.
Yep.
Like premier level skill. Started off reasonably young, not too bad. Worked his way up into the lineup. And by the way, Pavel Datsyuk didn't register a point a game until his fourth season.
Yeah, he was a slow comer, but he had the talent. Yeah, I saw that.
By the time he did that, he was 27. That's not like the be all and end all. It's not the end of the world, but I'm making sure we have a distinction. By the time it's all said and done, he scored 314 goals. Pretty good. In 953 games. That's solid. That's good. And 918 points. It's just under a point a game. Pretty good. He's a 4-time Lady Byng Trophy winner, a 3-time Selke winner, an All-Star, and a 2-time Stanley Cup winner.
Take the Lady Bings out, but yeah. Not
But I'm
bad.
saying, like, at least he's got hardware. The point is, he's got some stuff. He's got the Stanley Cups. He's got a couple of different things.
Is
And he's
Lady
a
Bing
real good player.
hardware?
It matters a little bit because then at least you got something to go along with it. Because
I
you can be a
getcha.
great player who plays consistently well over a long period of time, and you're just kind of there.
Yeah.
As I say, like you can be a guy who puts up good numbers, but then you're just kind of there. At least you're recognized in some capacity, and you've got something to go along with it.
Lady Bing though? Okay.
Whatever. Wayne Gretzky has like 456 Lady Bings, and people count it. So whatever.
Why?
The point-
Because he's got too many of the other trophies. Who cares?
Sure. I think he might have. I'd be curious if he had. Actually, now that you.
Okay, here we go.
I'm curious.
If you push Carlos hard enough, you'll just go, okay, I gotta find that.
Yeah, 5-time Lady Bing winner.
Oh, see, Datsuk was so close. 3-time, 5-time. Like
He's 60% of Wayne Gretzky.
he is, exactly. Thank you.
60%. Anyway, so the thing is, Datsuk falls into that category of pretty good, of real good for quite a period of time. And he contributed to Stanley Cup championship teams. You know, those Red Wing teams needed his contributions. That was part of it too. And he did very well. He was like a 90-point scorer a couple of times, like a 30, I want to say high 30s, almost 40 goal guy a couple of times. So like real good. Undervalued is hard to say because it's like, what's the market? He was real good. And if you're a fan, awesome. I think you're getting a bargain. But like, I don't know who's coming down the pipeline because I don't think he's making the Hall of Fame.
And no, I remember me and my son were watching an opening packs at that time, and I said I watched Datsuk a few times. And I said, man, that kid's got like great talent.
Super talent.
But you get stuck with certain teams. You just maybe could have been better somewhere else, and maybe that was that for him. Because I think he was supporting a line by itself.
He won 2 Stanley Cups on that team. It wasn't a bad.
That was the
place to be.
team. That was the team. They had no super duper stars. It's really kind of surprising on that team, on those 2 Stanley Cup winning teams. But they had a team that played like a team. It was most unbelievable. I love those years that they won those Stanley Cups.
But would you rather he have gone to a team where he got to crank up his offense all the way and doesn't win anything?
It doesn't. No, I just that team was so powerful. Without Datsuk, they still would have won.
Maybe we'll see.
It was a well played team. Everybody was hitting the cylinders. It was like
I agree, but I think the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, and I think every component had a piece, and
Sure.
Datsuk was not a small piece. He contributed to that.
did,
He was a
for sure.
contributor, a big time contributor to that, I believe.
Yeah.
So Paul here makes the point, which is a correct one. Lafreniere has more points than Joe Thornton as a rookie, and we made this and we gave the stat because Joe Thornton as a rookie actually played terrible, like literally terrible.
And look at him now.
Like he's had a long career, a very long career.
There's a guy with so much thought potential, but never really came to fruition on it. Interesting.
It is what it is. Is there any reason to think McDavid is not this generation's Crosby or Ovechkin?
He won't be on Edmonton.
Yeah. Skill wise, he's got all the tools.
I think he's the best player out there. He's just, well, especially we're playing in COVID times now. They're playing the same teams. It's getting kind of, and Edmonton is just, they had for 5 in a row at first round draft picks, and they still, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to touch on this one too much just because I've watched highlights of McDavid. I don't watch a ton of games. That's why I made the analysis before. Like, I'm in the category of collect the cards, don't really watch the game. I'll watch a game here and there, but I literally barely watch the sport. So I always put my hand up and go, by the way, if you want to ask me about a current guy, I'm going to have a real hard time helping you. Because other than highlight here or there, I don't watch the game.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm more about highlights. I don't watch the games.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where like someone who watches the game religiously will be able to tell you way better than I
A
can.
lot better.
And I will defer to their knowledge on that. Baseball, I'm more comfortable because I watch a lot more. And football, I'm way more comfortable because I definitely watch a lot more. Because I watch tons of games in football. But ironically, don't really collect football that much other than the odd card here and there. So the ones I collect the least are the ones I watch the most and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an anomaly that way, I grant you, but don't be surprised if there's other folks like me who is like, look, I collect it for nostalgia purposes. A lot of stuff I'm collecting. This team was 23 years ago, 22, 23 years ago.
Yeah, long time now.
I watch the current team in little bits. I'm barely paying attention. So let me get caught up on these comments here real quick. Or one of the scoring titles defenseman. That's insane.
Be right
Very
back.
true. No worries. So I have a big auto rookie card of this coming from Redemption. How long will it take you to get to me? Redemption, good luck to you. Godspeed. Yeah, absolutely. Wait a year for any rookie. The deal will always be better at that point. Yes. So I know there were 3 comments in a row. I don't know what they mean. I'll just take this one. DNS Sat. Hi. Hi, DNS Sat. Yeah, cards are part driven by players' talent stardom, also by popularity. Very true. So many great players are undervalued for the second reason. Datsuk players less popular than Bure. Yep. I will say probably what helped Datsuk is that, that helped Bure is that in the time he did play, he was able to put up some monster numbers in the goal scoring categories. And people do love the goal scorers quite a bit. Quite a bit. Datsuk is still playing the KHL. I believe that for sure. So here we go. So I didn't catch. Sorry, I was getting caught up on the comments here, but definitely I agree with you. Was a monster in 2008, 97 points, 23 playoffs. Could have won the Conn Smythe. Yep. No, I agree with you. I'm in the same category. I think he was a huge contributor to that team, and I think the fine line with some of those best teams to win a Stanley Cup is so fine that you can't just take out a Datsuk and they still win. I don't think they were that stacked. I think they were real good, but I think Datsuk's contributions were huge to play as part of that, and everybody had their role to play, and he definitely played a role with that. So that's why it's one of those deals where you can look at his totality and say, oh my God, especially if you watch him play, you can say like, oh my God, the skill, the contributions, he could score, he could play make, he could do all these great things. But does that translate to card value? Maybe, maybe not. If you're a super fan, he's desirable to you, but if you're somebody else, you're like, who's Pavel Datsuk? If you started watching hockey after his career was over, you don't know who the guy is. He doesn't mean anything to you. Unless you're a Detroit fan and somebody else tells you, hey, Pavel Datsuk was great in his day. Let me tell you about him. That's usually how that gets transferred down, and then people look it up, and then they do their own research, and that's how they figure that stuff out. That's how it works. But talent, without question. Without question. So name here, yep. Watch a ton of college basketball and football, but don't collect either. Yep. No, that's fair. And I think there's a lot of that. I think people would be shocked. Like, you can watch a sport and enjoy the sport and appreciate it. You don't necessarily have to be collecting cards from it, even if you're a card collector, which then that should tell you something about folks who maybe aren't driven to collect the cards in general. If even the people who do collect cards don't necessarily collect cards of the stuff they watch the most. Yep. No, that's fair, hockey guy. Yeah, I think that hurts, but I also think like at the end of the day, obviously, Stanley Cups is awesome. Had some great seasons. Was skill-wise a huge monster. Had some great highlights. But at the end of the day, he played long enough to do well. But like 900 points is impressive. But it's not all time. 300 goals. Impressive. Not all time. He was in no danger of touching any of those categories. He had a good career. Not the longest career, not the shortest career, but a very good career. A successful career in terms of winning Stanley Cups, in terms of doing a lot of things. But if I just took his stats in isolation and didn't see him play, he doesn't stand out to me. There's lots of guys with like 800 or 900 points. There's lots of guys with 300 goals. Most of them don't mean anything, Russian or not. But I get your point. I think that's a factor too. The Magic Man. Kent Nielsen. No, you got me on that one. But yeah, the only thing I'm making a point of is that sometimes we'll look at these players and we'll look at them. If we got to watch them play, that will add value to them a lot of times if we got to see them do certain impressive things. But then they don't hold up in the context of the overall statistical breakdown. Because like I said, we can have these players who have these dominant stretches, these dominant patches. But what separates the all-timers from guys who are real good are that some of these guys will have much longer dominant patches. And if that happens, that's usually when you start looking at these guys in that upper category. But otherwise, it's like, oh my God, you remember that guy between this year and this year? They were phenomenal. But then you remember this other guy and they were great between this year and this year. And you got a much bigger gap between the two things. That's a big difference. But for that smaller patch of time, they could be right at the top of the game, amongst the best. And by the way, that's still real good. And if you're a fan, you can be a collector and enjoy it. You can enjoy them a lot. This is a good one. Fedorov for Datsuk. I would pick Fedorov just because I liked aspects of his game. Although, like I said, skill-wise, Datsuk was real good. Real good. I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed watching Datsuk's highlights. Let's put it that way. When I got to watch some of his Datsukian dekes, is the way they like to put them, because he could deke a goaltender completely out of their skates. And it was just impressive. And you just sat there and, how is this guy not a 50 goal scorer? But he wasn't. He never was. But you thought like he had the potential, the capability, and you're like, oh my God, he should be. But it didn't happen. But really good. Very impressive. Careful. We're talking the go-to-goats here. Settle down, sir. Settle down. Yeah, but dominant patches versus longevity, that's what I'm getting at. Yep, absolutely. And there's a ton of great players who have dominant patches, these stretches of time. But very impressive. Very impressive. Yashin, I think, was a very impressive player for stretches of time, but he had his problems too. He had his things that hurt him in the viewing of the hockey watching public over time. But very impressive. Do you think the next generation, say the next 40, 50 years, these second-tier All-Stars will lose all their relevance? Yep, basically. Because if you have no connection, you didn't see them play, they just fade into the background with a lot of other similar type players. You don't have that memory. You don't remember the Datsukian deke. You can't speak to that. You can't remember seeing it. So to you, it's just like, so then you look at the raw stats and go, okay, pretty good. Just kind of fades in the background. Because if we look at it that way, it's like, well, there's a lot of guys who can put up comparable stats for the same length of time. That's not impressive. But if you remember the context of what he did during the time he did it, okay, might put it a little over the top for you and then bump him up a level. So if I want to win Fedorov, if I want a fun game to watch, Datsuk, that's fair. It's just a matter of your preference. Yep, in that vein. And Doug Gilmour's a Hall of Famer and Datsuk's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. I don't know about that one. I think Doug Gilmour played longer, and I think he was able to let's put it this way. Even if you want to consider those guys compilers, Gilmour was able to compile better statistics. Because I'll pull up his stuff here just to get it as well. Just for comparison's sake. Because I'm pretty sure he compiled better stats. Let me see. Oh, comfortably. Easily. Okay, so Gilmour obviously played longer. Like, there's no question about that. That's easy. That's completely obvious. But Gilmour had 100-point seasons. Not one, but 3 100-point seasons. Did 2 of them in Toronto, big market. He was able to have a great run. He did win a cup as well. Technically, Datsuk had more hardware, but Gilmour played longer. He got 1,400 points. Like, it's a 500-point gap between the two guys. And 450 goals versus like 314. 140 goals and 500 points is a big gap. So it's like the two guys aren't even close. Now, you want to say like Gilmour played longer? Absolutely. He played 500 more games. But Gilmour was almost a point-a-game player with 500 more games. Datsuk was almost a point-a-game player with 500 less games. More games being a point-a-game player or close to it is actually more impressive. The more games you play, the harder it is to be a point-a-game player because you tend to drop off. So if you play less games and fall short of that threshold, that's actually less impressive. That's only one metric, but it is one of a couple of metrics. That's important. Datsuk and Zetterberg will be in the Hall of Fame. Could be. Things like Top Shot will help popular Serenity All-Stars stay aside. Ooh, that'd be tough. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how much stock people put in that kind of thing. Spinorama outdoes the Datsukian deke. Okay. Hey, it's a matter of opinion. If Guy Carbon, Okada, and Datsuk will be in. But the thing is, you're still comparing them to guys who have better stats. Again, you're looking at Apex, right? Datsuk's Apex is skill level super high. But like you keep comparing them to guys whose stats blow them out of the water in short term. Now, Guy Carbonneau, in fairness, you got kind of a point. But Carbonneau won 3 cups. Mind you, points and everything wise, completely different style of player. So if Guy Carbonneau's your argument, sure. I guess then we let everybody in who's got 700 points. That'd be kind of fun. Why not? Let's do that. So anyway, Bobby, just so you know, you're muted. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Yes, I just had all my auctions in, so I was just kind of sending invoices out.
Yeah, no problem.
I thought I'd make about $400 or $500. It turned into a $900 night.
Look at you! Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sanderson's got Gilmour at. Yeah. So Gilmour says, yeah, it's just for 93 exactly. No worries, Jeff. It's all good. It's all good. That's the thing. You got to put it all together. You got to put it in context. Sometimes a lot of hockey folks will be considered compilers, so you have to understand that. But Gilmour had a pretty good run. He might not be everybody's favorite, but he definitely has fans. He's got fans, without a doubt. He's a fan favorite in certain areas. And 1,400 points is nothing to sneeze at. You do have to respect it. You do have to play well, at least a reasonable period of time to stay in the lineup long enough to get 1,400 points. So you still got to do something right in order to do that. And like I said, 3-time 100-point scorer. That's good.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's like you can't disrespect that. You have to at least appreciate it for what it is. So he was able to get some stuff done, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So looks like this auction's still going okay. It's got some time. I've been monitoring my own auctions for myself as well. Just kind of keeping an eye.
Gilmore is one of my favorite players. A little bit dirty, but I mean, what's wrong with that?
That's one of the things, though. He was able to play at high skill level. Impressive. But he was also able to play with a little bit of grit / dirty. But no, it's still good. The thing is, though, they're in hockey, we give guys credit who have some skill who can also play with a little bit of grit. We do appreciate that. It's like an added bonus.
Yeah.
And it gives a greater appreciation in that way.
Mm-hmm. True.
So I think that's fair. Let's scan here. Yeah, Gilmore's interest for his nickname. There you go, Killer. Yeah, I'm a Gilmore fan. He was the best player, not named Gretzky in '93. Yeah, the Leaf fans will always have the argument about '93. I'm not touching that with a 50.
Oh, come on! You know Gretzky did it.
I'm returning back to the skating the crease argument. Yes.
Oh, not that one.
No, but the thing is, here's the thing. Okay, so let's say he gets a penalty. Then what? Then you find a different way to lose. It's the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
You find a different way. Marty McSorley scores the game winner. Okay, does that make you happier? Like, does it help?
McSorley, come on.
Sure. I know it has to be the worst guy. It has to be like maybe the water boy does it. It doesn't matter. It has to be whoever the worst is. It's like, and then you find something new to complain about.
I guess.
Like, nothing in the Maple Leaf history has told me that you guys have demonstrated the ability to actually win. We take away one factor and it's like, you find a different way.
Well, there's 13 Stanley Cups there.
Great. All of them were in the original 6 era. As soon as they added a 7th team, nothing.
History's history.
Great. You had a 1 in 6 chance mathematically, and those American teams don't count.
Okay. Well, add the 3 Lady Bings on then too, right?
Might as well give it to the franchise. That's the only way you're going to get anything out of it.
Yeah. No, that's true. The Leafs haven't had much going on in the decades I watched them. 93 was probably the best. I never seen someone.
I'd agree with that. I would agree with that.
I did see 67, but I was young and I don't actually really remember, but I remember jumping around for no reason.
Yeah, their problem, to be honest with you, their problem in all seriousness was that Harold Battler was legitimately a horrifically bad owner, and they squandered the 70s when they had a fair bit of talent still available. Like, they had gotten some young talent. Daryl Sittler and those guys were actually really good. Boreas Salming, really good. Like, this
Lanny McDonald, just
on paper, this should have been good. Because you have to think, the whole original 6 era thing was fun because it's always the running joke with the Leafs. Because as soon as they went past the last year of the original 6 era was the last time they won.
Yes.
As soon as you added more teams, nothing. But the Montreal Canadiens were huge beneficiaries of that era too.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 70s, they put together a powerhouse. They still managed to find a way. They still had enough components. Like, they still had enough good talent available, and they had done that. But they lost a lot of the exclusivity. Now, by the end of the 70s, it got progressively harder.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1980s, they found a guy named Patrick Waugh, and they were able to find a way to squeeze 2 more Stanley Cups there at the end. I think 86 or 85, something like that.
Yeah.
Was the Waugh year.
86 was Patrick Waugh's rookie.
Yeah. So they did that, and then they were able to win in 93. But then the Montreal Canadiens, same problem. Nothing.
Oops.
All the Canadian teams, nothing.
Yeah.
But so it got progressively harder. We acknowledge it got harder as you went along. But the Leafs couldn't even find that when the 70s, pretty good. Like the 70s, the Leafs team had some good components as well.
Many.
They could have made it interesting for themselves. That was their window. That was their shot to like do something interesting.
Yeah, but they had some powerhouse teams. You had Boston Bruins, you had Montreal Canadiens. They were just so tough. And the players they had.
Yeah.
Look at the lineup of Boston with Bobby Orr, and just you could name off 10 guys on that team that were just powerhouses. And same thing with Montreal. So far, you just keep naming people. Where the Leafs, you can name 4 guys, and that's, one really good, 2 pretty darn good, and a bunch of others are good players,
I
and
get
then
you,
the rest are
but that's
mediocre.
that's still team management though. Like it's one of those things. Like if you got those pretty goods and stuff like that, well then get more. Like as a team, your job is to then build around what you got and give yourself a shot, give yourself a chance,
They
make it
didn't.
possible. Yeah,
They made the worst moves I've ever seen.
Exactly.
They always get everybody at the end of their career.
correct.
It's almost like a boys' club.
Yeah, but that's on
Valid.
that's on the management. That is on
Yeah.
the management. So it's like if at least you've got some teams don't even have players. So if you've got at least a couple of players, build with that. Like build off of that. Continue. So thank you, Richie. I appreciate the sentiment there. Thank you for
And
that.
the most collectible team in collectibles of any other team. Surprisingly.
Listen, the market is still ripe. So it's one of those things. Like in the Toronto market, they are absolutely. It would be curious. It's the great unknown. Could you imagine what would happen if that stupid team ever did win a cup?
That'd be crazy.
It would. Like it would be insanity.
Markets would be
Like
hockey.
it would be. But you just think, especially with the young guys they've got, because they've got Austin Matthews leading the league in
Matthews.
goals right now.
Marner.
Yeah, but think for a second. So let me play this all the way out. For some reason, they decide this is the year they randomly decided to put it together. For whatever reason. Great. Good for them. COVID year 2. So
COVID
this is the
Cup.
year they put it together.
Yeah.
Great. They have a Stanley Cup run. Austin Matthews is the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. What happens with Austin Matthews?
Trade him for a couple defensemen.
Next year. But the point is, like, for this year, like, value-wise, like,
Crazy on his
it
rookie
would
card.
be madness. It would be madness.
And Marner's too.
Sure.
And
But I'm saying
a
you
few
can
others.
imagine it, but you can envision it in your mind and be like, it would be madness. It would be
Yeah.
complete madness. It would be anarchy. It would be fun to watch, but it would be anarchy without a doubt.
hashtag don't invest.
Pretty much. Yeah, I wouldn't put my money on that one. but it would be, considering the ferocity of that market, it's like a volcano waiting to erupt. They want
It
to
is.
erupt, but they haven't had that opportunity yet.
No.
Every year they hope, but they haven't had that actual opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I have over 50 years of waiting. Wow. That's crazy, isn't it? 50 years.
Well, in fairness, it's 54.
Over 50 years, I said.
I don't want to shortchange you, Bobby. I don't want to shortchange you.
Shortchange how old I am? No, of course not.
We got to add a little extra, There's a little more to it. Yeah, Toronto would have won more cups after the 70 expansion if Montreal wasn't stacking the decks. That's fine. But the thing is, though, like,
Yeah, that went on too.
the thing is, I always have fun with it, but I can't give them that excuse because other teams found a way. Other teams have found a way.
True.
Even teams that don't make any sense, even teams that didn't exist at the time, found a way. So you can't sit back and look at everybody else and go, they're the reason we can't. Like, find a way.
Yeah.
Carolina's got a Stanley Cup. Anaheim's got a Stanley Cup. Tampa's got 2. And Tampa was trash when they came in the league. Trash
Mhm.
for years.
Yeah.
And they won 2 Stanley Cups. What do you want? Like, it is the truth. It is what it is. And
Took
even
St.
when-
Louis 50 years.
It's St. Louis. But you know what? The other thing, the one that makes me laugh, there was that little run, if you remember back, I want to say in the 2000s. I think that's right. The same time the Carolina Hurricanes won theirs and stuff like that, there was that run where you had, like, every Canadian team took a turn getting to the Cup final.
Mhm.
Forget about winning. They all, because Ottawa got to the Cup final, Vancouver got to the Cup final, Calgary and Edmonton got to the Cup final in consecutive years. Like, everybody and their brother had a shot at it. If Saskatchewan had a team, they would have gotten a Cup final. The only team that
Probably.
couldn't do anything was Toronto.
Yeah.
Even
go figure.
Montreal had a run at the Cup final.
Hmm.
All of them. Now, none of them won. They were 0 for 5 during that entire attempt. But it was like this run where each one of these teams over a couple of years there took at least one shot at it. One shot at it.
Yeah, I think the board of directors had a lot of influence on the Leafs. That they were making bad moves. You know, you think they know more than you, but as a fan, a lot of us know more than them because I wouldn't trade him. I'd get rid of him. I'd get rid of this guy. I'd keep this guy. It's no surprise that we've needed defense for the last how many years, let alone a better goalie. why do they keep getting forwards and good players? That's great. We're just outscoring our opponents. We're just hoping we get more goals than they do on our end. That's how we're winning.
That strategy totally works, Bobby. I don't know what you're talking about.
It does sometimes.
Until it doesn't. Until it doesn't. Usually the playoffs is when it stops working.
Yes, exactly.
Strategically in the playoffs, it tends to stop working, that particular strategy. Historically. At some point, you must stop a puck from going in. At some point.
Now you know why I collect vintage.
There you go. Got it. Yeah, Sanders Sador. They were cheating. He's from Boston. So, yes, we understand. We get it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We understand. We get it. But that's the thing, though. Like, even for that, different teams manage to build those teams. So one of those things where, like, I can't accept excuses right now. Some teams are better equipped to do it than others, but you got to find a way. If that's your desire, if that's sincerely your team's goal, then you got to find a way. Teams have figured it out how to do it, or at least give themselves a shot, take a run. And like I said, Dallas last year, it was a COVID season. Going into the playoffs, they actually were playing like trash. The run made no sense. The goaltender stood on his head. They just ran that to the finals. They ran out of gas in the finals because they didn't actually have the horses to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But full credit to them for even getting there. You know,
Sure.
I was impressed. I thought they were going to lose every single round.
That was like the 93 Leafs. Every round, it was like the last minute they'd score a
Like
goal.
they were supposed to. And you know what? The Colorado Avalanche had them dead to rights. They had them dead to rights. That was a young, hungry team with super talent. They were way better. But sometimes stuff happens. And you get lucky. And then they ran out of luck when they got to Tampa. So it's like, all right, well, it happens. What are you going to do? So there you go.
It's unfortunate, but
Yeah, but you take
That's
it when it
hockey.
comes. When it comes and you get that run, you enjoy it as a fan, enjoy it and have fun with it, and that's really all there is to it. But there you go. Cool. Sounds good. So I think we're in a good spot. I'm actually pretty happy with it. I haven't seen too much. Obviously, we've had our fun, with the different teams on there. I know as soon as you get a hockey question, folks get active there. They enjoy themselves.
Sure.
So guys, is there anything else we want to chat about, or are we going to wind it down and call it an evening? I'm good to do that because there's a couple of things I can do and get done. So I've got no issue with that. But you guys have to let me know. Otherwise, you're catching the end of WrestleMania. I'm assuming that's coming to an end, or at least close to, because they broke it up into 2 nights now. So I'm assuming they've gotten around to probably the main event by now, if not already done.
don't they know your show's on?
Listen, the WWE is very inconsiderate.
Hmm.
This is the reason they're not the WWF anymore. The Panda and I had a conversation, and it was unacceptable. Just unacceptable. Did you ever hear what happened though with that?
No.
So WWF is the World Wildlife Fund, the Panda.
I knew there was something going on, but
Yeah.
I never found out the end.
They had originally come to an arrangement where they would allow the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF at that time, they would allow them to use the initials in North America. But I believe in Europe, they were supposed to use WWE or whatever else. They were
Fair
supposed
enough.
to use something
Sounded
else.
like a good agreement.
Yeah, they basically said, like, look, in North America, you can call it WWF, that's fine, but internationally, call it something else. We don't care what you call it, just call it something else, whatever.
Hmm.
So that arrangement was ongoing. But then Vince McMahon, in his infinite arrogance, decided to be like, yeah, screw the Panda, WWF it is. So they started doing some tours and things, and then they caught wind of it, and then they sued them, and then the Panda smacked down Vince McMahon and told him, now you're not WWF anywhere. It belongs to
Wow.
us. So that's when they did their campaign and tried to make it sound like it was their idea. They did the commercials. They go, get the F out. And they go, uh-huh. Yeah, no, they were trying to be cute. It's like the Panda smack you down, didn't they? You got smacked by the Panda. Don't lie to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what happened with that. I completely forgot about that, but I remember hearing about
Yeah.
that in the news.
Yeah. So that's the World Wildlife Fund had rights to it, and they had allowed it, and all you had to do was follow the rules. Don't cross the Panda, Bobby. Don't
No.
cross the Panda.
A federation can't beat a fund.
Nope, not at all.
No. And that's
No,
where the fight was.
names. No worries. Yeah, it's the notification is always key. Always key. But yeah,
All right.
one of these days, though, what we got to do is, and I'll reach out to you. We'll figure something out. One of these days, I'll get you to pop on for one of the shows. We'll definitely, you can pop on and hang out and chat for a bit. So we'll make sure that happens. It's no worries. We'll get that done. Exactly, Sanders Sador. All right, cool. So I think that'll be kind of the last word Thank you all, as always, for hanging out. It's been fun on the Sunday. We didn't really have a lot to go with, but still managed to go 2.5 hours and have some fun and chat. So, good to hear. Name sounds like a plan. We'll get that to happen. So we got a chance to have our hockey chat, have a little fun at the Leafs misfortune, as you do. But we'll see what the rest of the season has in store for us, and we'll see what the next hobby week has in store for us. I'm going to sit back. I've been putting together a little list of topics and stuff. One ask I'll have of you guys that are on here. Like it was mentioned before, if you haven't already, we'd appreciate it. We'd appreciate a thumbs up if you could. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. That would be appreciated as well. But also, in the same vein, if there are some topics and things you want to address and touch on that you think of later, and you catch it on the replay or whatever, put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Or reach out to me at the Instagram and, shoot me an idea or two. And because sometimes it's good to already have a couple of things ready to go. Obviously, as you guys come up with stuff and we think of things or people come on and ask questions and bring up topics, we can have some fun. We can talk about random stuff too. But if there's something that's on your mind, we can definitely touch on it because we got the 2 live streams going. The whole time we've been here, I've had the next one already on there. Friday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's already there.
Perfect.
So it's been scrolling the whole 2.5 hours. So you can't say you don't know because it's right there. And then the Sunday one is the Sunday one, and we're doing that at 8:30 now just to give us some time. So that's it. Still Sunday in the East Coast, still Sunday in the West Coast, but enjoy the next hour of your weekend on the East Coast, and we will catch you on the next live stream. Thanks, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See y'all.